This is Fire Emblem Legacy. It's an optimization ROM hack of the GBA's original Fire Emblem that my team has spent thousands of hours working on. This ROM hack includes dozens of quality of life features, allied unit balances, enemy unit buffs, updated maps, Lyn, Eliwood, and Hector hard mode adjustments, and so much more. For those of you that don't know me, hi there, I'm Patrick, also known as TheSmithplays, more popularly known within the ROM hacking community for the Pokemon Legacy projects. And I've basically taken all my experiences of what I've learned from making those 3 ROM hacks, and I decided to put it into Fire Emblem. The goal of the Legacy project is to make the most optimized and improved version of the game while staying true to the original vision and feel that the developers put forth. By perfect, I simply mean that this ROM hack is trying to emulate what FE7 could have been had the developers had 20 years of retrospect. Like all Legacy ROM hacks, Fire Emblem Legacy is a hack that still tries to feel like the FE7 you know, but is optimized to play like the FE7 your nostalgic brain remembers. And today we're gonna go through every single change split up in 2 parts. We'll break this video up into quality of life, weapon changes, enemy changes, unit changes, difficulty modes, and finally look at map changes. There's also documentation down in the description below for each and every single change made to the game. The description also has a link to this patch so that you can play yourself, as well as instructions on how to actually patch it and get it running. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I bring you Fire Emblem Legacy. So the first thing we're gonna look at is quality of life, which is something that Fire Emblem 7 is definitely lacking in many big ways. The very first thing I wanna note is that this ROM hack actually took all of the patches from the Fire Emblem 7 Plus enhancement hack from MCOL. First thing that this patch includes is all modes and difficulties are unlocked from the start. You don't have to play Lyn Mode your first time to get to Eliwood and then Hector hard and all that stuff. It's just pick whatever you want from the very start. We will talk more about the specific changes to modes in another section. With this patch, we also decided to add a casual mode. Between save states and just people being familiar with the modern Fire Emblem systems, I think it's fair that a lot of people want to play the older games, not having to restart after just one small mistake. So if that is something that appeals to you, it should be a huge quality of life add. The next monumental thing is 3x effectiveness. The original Fire Emblem 7 in Japan had this, and for new players, they nerfed that down in the West to 2 times. This caused a lot of issues with the game. We actually tried to see if it was possible to balance the game around 2 times effectiveness, and it's just not. And I need to give in a special big shout out to Imported Cheese for helping me with this one. Next up, when you are in the overworld, if you press select, you will now see the enemy army's range displayed. And then when you're on the stat screen of an allied unit, if you press select, you can actually now see that unit's growth. It's crazy that that didn't exist, but also even more important because we have tweaked units' growths. In the overworld, we've also added exclamation marks to warn for effective or killer weapons on a unit. So if you go to move your knight and someone has an armor slayer, it will like highlight that effectiveness. Another thing is HP bars now show all unit health in the overworld. Oh my God, I don't think I can play Fire Emblem 7 without this feature. Previously, it was so easy to overlook a unit that you think is at full health, and they're not because Fire Emblem 7 didn't do this. So now when your unit gets damaged, an HP bar pops up below them, and it makes playing the game a lot better. Also, a lot of us like to play with animations off. I like to play with animations off, but sometimes you have a fight that you want to watch and you didn't have it lined up. Before the fight is about to initiate, if you hold the L button, it will auto trigger the animation to play, even if you have animations turned off. This is great for boss fights, but also just like, I don't know, random cool fights that you want to watch, or you think a crit's coming up. One thing that Fire Emblem 7 also did really weird were route splits, kind of. There's 2 alternate route split maps in the game. The first one is Four-Fanged Offense. Previously, if the levels of your lords totaled less than 50, you would fight Lloyd, and you'd get a different map if they were over 50. With our buffs to lords, which we will talk about later, getting them to 50 now is like actually very easy. So instead of it being like if you hit 50, you just automatically go to Linus. Now, if you hit 50, a text box option will pop up asking you if you want to go to the Linus chapter instead of the Lloyd. You get to pick. And if you don't hit 50, you'll automatically still go to Lloyd like previously. Now, Pale Flower of Darkness. Oh boy. I don't know. It's like the collective of like 4 units make you go to one map or the other. And like if you knock on a door correctly, it's a mess. It's horrible. We hated it. We scrapped it. Pale Flower of Darkness might blow your mind. Those 2 maps actually sit side beside each other. Kind of crazy. Kind of blew my mind. I figured this out while we're making this ROM hack. And we just decided, let's add the 2 maps together. So Pale Flower of Darkness is now one very large map. There's no route split anymore, and we will talk more about that later. It's one of my favorite changes of the whole Romhack, though. I think you're gonna be really excited about it. We've also removed some of the weird guidance requirements, specifically 19XX, the map that no one's ever been to. You no longer need Nils to get to level 7. You just have to defeat Kashuna on 19X. Also, something I always hated is like if you're playing Eliwood mode, like some units are recruited by Eliwood, but then in Hector's story, they're only recruited by Hector. Legolt, Hawkeye, Karel, Nino, Vida, all of those units, like it's so easy to get the wrong lord to talk to them. So we've made it so that in all modes, both of them can. Same goes for the pen situation in Living Legend. Oh, and we've given Merlinus a higher starting level so that you don't only have his like moving tent for like 2 chapters. On the note of support growths, our general philosophy was that we wanted to make it easier to grind for supports if you were planning on grinding for supports, but not so easy that it would just automatically happen without intention. So you won't need to mash the end turn button for like 40 turns anymore, but you won't accidentally get a bunch of supports either. And then lastly, a bit of an aesthetic change. We've actually added a bunch of custom animations. There's actually a fair number of units that got custom promotion sprites, like mostly the female ones where you never see their generic counterparts like Louise, Sarah, Rebecca, Isadora. So first we added custom animations for Kashuna, Merlinus's tent, Merlinus's wagon, along with Zephiel. We added some female enemy sprites such as the female druid, female nomad, female nomad trooper, Myrmidon, hero. But then we added some stuff in for promoted main units. Rebecca's promoted sprite went to generic female archer, while she got her own one. In turn, Will got his own one. Stain and Kent are both very important characters, so they both got their own custom promotion sprites. We also see some tweaks for Urk, Priscilla, which I really like, looks super naturally integrated. Dart is a pirate berserker, and we said we're gonna give him his own sprite. He has both had his dragon's colors updated to be the official artwork colors, as well when he promotes, you can see he loses his helmet, and you can even see his hair. Nino gets her own. The Pegasus Knights also got updated to slightly better represent their hair. We also felt it weird that Matthew loses his awesome hair, and although Goodhead Matthew's cool, he got a change as well. And then last but not least, you've got the Eliwood Lance animation. You've also got the ranged one. And then lastly, you've got Hector with swords. The first set of gameplay changes we're going to look at are going to be to weapons, magic, staves, and items. This is like the fundamental base layer of gameplay, so it makes sense to first look at this, get an understanding of it, and then you'll understand how that kind of relates into our other unit and map, weapon, enemy, all those changes. So starting off, a lot of the generic classes of weapons saw similar treatments. For example, we had not just the iron sword, but all iron weapons going from 46/45 uses up to 60. Steel weapons went from 30 to 40, and silver weapons went from 20 to 25. Outside of adding 3 times effectiveness back into the game, I would say probably the most notable item/weapon changes we did were to their uses. I think GBA Fire Emblem got durability wrong in the sense that the lower tiers of weapons like irons are basically like just annoying to equip. These games just have a lot of downtime in inventory management that is not fun. So the first thing we wanted to do is make that less annoying, while at the same time making sure that the better weapons still sort of need to be conserved. Now, the other thing that's important to note is we didn't actually change the value per use of item. So previously the Iron Sword had 46 uses and it cost 460 gold. Now it's 60 uses for 600. So although items have more durability, they cost more because of it. Overall though, iron weapons stayed pretty much the same. Slim weapons got a small buff to their crit, Slim Sword going from 5 to 10. This weapon really exists for low con sword units like Lyn, Matthew, even Guy to an extent, who like fighting large hordes of axe units and just dodge tanking them all. In one single encounter, the up crit isn't really going to do much, but over the course of 10 rounds of combat, you're going to get 1 or 2 crits, which is going to raise that overall damage output. I find the Slim Sword to actually be useful in the early game. Slim Sword, Steel Sword, and Silver Sword now also give +2 weapon experience instead of 1. Steel Sword only had minor changes to hit, same for Silver Sword. Brave Sword is effectively unchanged, and we actually raised the usage of all killing weapons from 20 to 30. I found 20 to be quite restrictive, considering that in GBA Fire Emblem, like if you're relying on crits to kill enemies, it's probably not the best unit to start with. Bringing the usage up to 30 just makes these weapons a lot more fun to use. It's really nice on characters like Guy and some of the pegs that like a killer lance. As for effective weapons, we've actually got pretty big changes here because, again, 3x effectiveness is now back in the game. First big change, though, is that all effective weapons have been normalized to have 20 uses. You had the longsword and armor slayer at like 18. I think some weapons had like maybe 15, some weapons were 30. It didn't make any sense, so we've just normalized that to 20. And then from there, like for the entire set of classes, you know, longsword, armor slayer, small tweaks. Same can be said for like heavy spear, horse slayer, sword slayer as well. They've all just been generally tweaked to find what feels like correct balance in the game. And with 3x effectiveness now, they're all very good. Specifically with the Worm Slayer, we've actually got a pretty noteworthy change where we've also made it a Reaver weapon, but in doing so, we let it stay at 2x effectiveness. I don't think there is a single Wyvern Lord that actually uses a sword, so the fact that you have a sword that is super effective against Wyverns who all use lances made it a pretty stupid effective weapon. We decided that the best way to balance this would be to make it a Reaver weapon so that it counters lances and then stays with its 2x effectiveness. Similarly, we've also put Reaver weapons to 20. Those pretty much act just like they used to. Now, the Iron Blades are a very curious set of weapons. Previously not very good, not very worth it, and I think a big reason was because there was just been no unit that likes using them, but they're also pretty heavy. So while we've done some slight tweaks to accuracy and weight, I actually think the biggest changes to the blades are that Hector can now use swords straight out of the gates. We'll get more into lore discussion later, but this is a very big change for him because he was literally designed to use these weapons. He's slow, he wants a little bit more accuracy, which swords provide, and we actually nerfed the Iron Blade to now be an E rank weapon. And so as soon as you get it on the False Friends chapter, Hector can just instantly start using it and get pretty decent damage output with a sword. Obviously, much more to come on that in the next sections. Now, as for some of the more fun swords in the game, actually the biggest change to any weapon in the entire game is the Wind Sword. Because it was a larger change, we've renamed it to the Wind Edge. It remains a 1-2 range weapon that is now a physical sword with no magic bases. This weapon was created for Myrmidons and Lyn. This class specifically struggled because unlike a Raven who also had good bases, but then gets hand axes on promotion, you know, this crew is just one range sword locked forever. I guess Lyn gets bows, but like, you know, let's talk gi. So this gives 1-2 range access to those previously sword locked units. It is locked to Myrmidons, Swordmaster, and Lyn. You can first find one dropped on Whereabouts Unknown. We also added in some fun lore for it on chapter 7 of Lyn's story. There's small changes to the other two magical swords. The Manikati got +10 hit because it's effective against Cavs and Knights who use lances. Same for Rapier that got +5. These weapons are no wolf beals, but they're still really nice now with effective damage. Durandal went from 16 weight down to -4. And the Soul Kadi, the like biggest meme weapon in all of Fire Emblem 7, went from 14 weight down to 7. Also has 40 crit, a little bit more damage, and actually kind of makes Lyn one of the best units for fighting the final boss. And then lastly, we have the Wodao. And the Wodao is a Swordmaster focused 1-2 range weapon that has 40 crit, 1-2 range, physical damage, and 40 uses. Now moving on to lances, basically the same set of changes to like Iron, Slim, Steel, Silver, Brave, Killer, etc. The Slim Lance also got a crit boost from 5 to 10, which is 5 less than the Slim Sword, just because the Slim Lance is already a little bit better. The really big changes to lances come with the 1-2 range weapons. This is a big change. The Javelin and Hand Axe have gone from 20 uses up to 40. Now this is a very big boost for what are considered to be the best weapons in the game. This change was made because it's really annoying having to have Marcus carry 5 hand axes per chapter. Enemy classes and growths have also been buffed though, and this means that in the harder difficulties, enemy phase 1-2 ranging everything is quite a bit more challenging, so you won't get quite as much insanity out of these weapons. So to base Fire Emblem 7 probably feels like a lot, but it just feels good not having to like constantly swap out the weapon. The Short Spear has actually had a pretty big identity change as well. I don't really understand why the Short Spear was heavier than the spear. The existence of the word short implies that it would have less overall mass. I think it was trying to be the steel weapons of ranged weapons, but it really just served no purpose. Meanwhile, Pegasus riders really needed a lighter weight ranged lance. So conveniently, the Short Spear namedly makes sense for this and also has a really good purpose in the game. From 12 down to 5 weight and from 9 damage down to 3. This is basically gonna be Florina's PRF, but you will appreciate it. Also, we gave it 10 crit to sort of mirror the Slim Lance. The Spear got +10 uses, still and always has been an amazing weapon. For Axes, once again, similar changes to all the main sets of weapons. Notably, the dragon axe is now actually in the game. Like the wind edge, the dragon axe was always in the game, but it wasn't normally accessible. So this is just 2x effectiveness against dragon units. That means both the final boss and wyverns. You can find this weapon dropped on Hector's Crazed Beast exclusive map. Moving over to hand axes, once again, went from 20 to 40. As for Hector's wolf spiel, this got a +5 accuracy. Just feels like it would be nice for it to be a little bit more accurate than an iron axe. The big thing with this is that with effective damage, Hector was already one-shotting a lot of units, so it just makes him do that even more. It feels nice though, because that's Hector's identity, and he has a rougher late game, so the early smashing is very much appreciated. And armads went from 18 to 13 weight. Now, bows are probably the most overall changed weapons in the game. Anyone who's played GBA Fire Emblem knows bows are just bad. Basically, the way that we approach this is that having only access to 2 range is bad, so the weapon needs to make up for that in another way. First big thing, 3x effectiveness. Even Rebecca is one-shotting pegs with an iron bow at the start of the game, but we actually took it even further where we buffed the iron bow's hit and might by 1. And then the steel bow and silver bow both got +2 to might and +10 to hit. So basically now, the trade-off is 2 range, but you have what are pound for pound the best weapons in the game. Brave bow got +5 hits. The longbow also got a pretty notable upgrade. It went from 20 uses up to 30 and from 5 damage up to 7. So same as the new iron bow. Now this weapon is special because it's of course a 2-3 ranged weapon, which gives you access to non-counterable attacks to basically the entire enemy army. It is situationally very useful and I think adds some further utility to archers. We buffed its rank from D up to C so that warriors don't get it upon promotion. This further helps make the actual archer class better. More to come later. Okay, next up is magic, which is kind of weird in Fire Emblem 7. We took the approach of the 3 magic systems in this game and we made anima basically still what it is, which is like solid accuracy, good damage. Light tomes are more closer to like slim, where they have less weight, less damage, but better crits. You'll notice that like especially divine going to 15, aura going up to 20 crit, also getting massive reductions to their weight. Then lastly, you have dark tomes, which are frankly a total mess. The issue is you have flux, which is like your bottom tier, weakest, just straight up damage output tome, but then you don't have anything from Flux all the way to the A rank tome Fenrir, which is like really big difference in damage. Now the 2 things you have between those is Nosferatu, which is C rank. This is the draining magic weapon. Nosferatu in FE7 is horrible. Like, who has ever used this thing seriously? We've reduced it from 14 weight down to 11, which will still slow Kanos down, but not by nearly as much. We've also given it 10 more uses, and this should hopefully allow him to do some light Nosferatu tanking. It's not gonna be like Fire Emblem Awakening insanity, but it's now actually a viable strategy. Also is very nice on enemy shamans. And then we have Luna, which is the most unbalanced thing in the entire game. High crit weapon that pierces, is basically uncounterable when it's on the enemy. So we were very, very careful to not give it out to a lot of units. But Crazy Good Luna is also very much a part of FE7 and we didn't want to hurt that. So it keeps the crit, it keeps the pierce, it keeps its availability, but we've reduced it from 35 uses down to 20. So you have to be a little bit smart with it. Also going to be the B rank tome because Luna is just so much better than Nosferatu. Like seriously, what were they thinking? And also we're gonna make Luna go from 95 accuracy down to 75. It's still insane. It will still do wonders for you in the final fights, but yeah, just a little bit of balance there. Then for the big boy tomes, Fenrir went from 18 down to 13. Just Penst went from 20 down to 15. They're still heavy. They have monumental damage, but they're not quite as stupid, I guess. The point is that now they are actually usable. Now the biggest changes to staves is that their base XP yield went from 10 up to 14. Heal's the minimal tome that gives you +1 on top of that. So you get 15 experience for heals and then it kind of goes up from there. This helps Priscilla and Sarah grow like at a much more reasonable pace. Previously Recover was the staff that had no use because it restores all HP to an ally, while Mend effectively has the same function. So we decided to make Recover a 1-3 range weapon. So it's kind of like a mini Physic. You'll get your first Recover staff now on Dread Isle, and it is really useful for the following Dragon's Gate chapter. Physic is awesome, stays the same. Fortify stays the same. Torch stays the same. Unlock was previously a 1-2 range weapon, and we just boosted that up to 1-3 because it makes it better. And then Restore probably got the biggest change, going from 1 range to like warp range. So the range to restore, like a sleep, a berserk, a silence, is magic divided by 2. We buffed the hammer from 3 uses to 5 because it's fun. And then we also buffed the rescue staff to 5. Warp has 5, and it's way better than rescue, and it's just like fun to have more staves and stuff. So yeah. Outside of that, we've got a few more item changes. Literally just going into FE Builder to show these changes. Stat boosters have pretty much stayed the same, but the goddess icon has gone from +2 to +3 luck because luck is not that crazy. We know some ROM hacks go to 4, secret books also go to 3 sometimes. We wanted to keep it, you know, true to Fire Emblem 7, but ultimately found like the goddess icon needed to be improved. The main promotion items have stayed the same. Vulneraries have gone from 3 to 5 uses, and it is beautiful. Okay. Mine. This is a contentious one. Because we built this ROM hack off of a previous existing quality of life ROM hack, I didn't realize that it patched the mine glitch, and then we had done like all the work on this ROM hack until we realized. So unfortunately, the enemy control glitch is removed for Legacy. It wouldn't have been my choice if I hadn't known that I made this mistake. I am sorry for that, but with this change, it actually allowed us to make the mine pretty good. So it now does 20 damage, and it has 3 uses per item. With better enemy quality, being able to stop a unit's movement for 1 turn is also really nice. So I think like if you actually use this thing, you're gonna have a lot of fun, and you'll be able to do some really cool stuff with it. The rings, Phila's Might and Knee's Grace, are both amazing. They've remained the same. However, Thor's Ire now buffs a unit's crit for 1 turn by 30 instead of 10. And then Set's Litany, which comes super late, is actually buffing your avoid by 50. Seems crazy, but the other ones, and even just like a regular dance, are still probably better because dancing is just like that good. Now I should mention the Earth Seal now promotes pirates and thieves, but we've updated the Ocean Seal to now be called the Knave Seal. It's a classic Fire Emblem change, and this will also promote pirates and thieves. The Emblem Seal was a double dash exclusive promo item that gives a unit that holds it +10 avoid and hit. We thought this was kind of cool, so we actually added it in on the chapter that you normally got the Fell Contract, the Knight of Farewells boss. It's kind of good, it's kind of useful. It's not super OP, but we just thought it would be another nice fun thing to add in. So next up we have the classes themselves. So not like Raven, but the class Mercenary. And this section is mostly going to be specific to how enemy units have been improved. Fire Emblem 7 enemies have bad growths. When we started going through this, most of the enemy growths are like 10 to 20, where your army, usually like a good growth is maybe 50 or even more than that. And this is very much your experience in Fire Emblem 7, where if you're playing Hector hard mode at least, the first few chapters are quite difficult because the enemy stats are pretty on par with your stats. But as the game goes on, even in Hector hard mode, enemies get bad. They just fall off a cliff because they have no growth. So we have done pretty major fixes. I'm not going to get into the boring, like tiny, +10s and all that. I'll do one deep dive example to give you an idea of the changes. The Knight is nice and clean for this, and then we'll go more briefly through everyone else. Okay, previously in the Blazing Blade, Knights had a 28% defense growth, which basically meant every 3 to 4 levels, the Knight, the defensive class, gets 1 point of defense. That's insane. It's their res is 20%. They're supposed to have low res, and while the bases account for that, they never really get that much better. We have changed the growth to 48%. So basically every 2 levels and a bit, they gain a point of defense. We've lowered res to 15. That specifically has made knights now actually feel like knights. You go up to them, you try to hit them with an iron sword, and you don't do a lot of damage. You go, oh, gee, I actually could use an effective weapon, or I actually could use a magic user to take this guy out. Similarly, while speed was really bad at 15%, that is tough. They just never grew. So we raised that up to 31. Knights are still not fast, but now they have enough speed to keep up to like you trying to double them with an effective weapon on a really slow one of your units. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of like the vision we had. Basically just trying to make units on the enemy side feel like what their class is supposed to feel and what it does feel like when you use that class. Mercenaries are already really good. You're gonna find them, especially in the hard modes, to have a pretty good speed and pretty good attack. Myrmidon classes will have slightly higher speed, slightly less damage, also less defense. The fighter class was already in a pretty good spot, so we just kind of balanced it out with slightly better speed and slightly better damage. Archers have been balanced to typically feel a bit on the slower side of enemies with good damage. I typically find enemy archers to often surprise me at how much their shots now hurt. They've also got a bit more con so that they're not getting weighed down as much. Actually, same can be said for the Myrmidon that now has 8 con. Monks have been buffed to have good speed. These are supposed to be now the Myrmidon enemies of the magic realm. You'll find monks and bishops to get pretty strong as the game goes on. Mages are more of your average, so decent speed, not often outspeeding you, decent damage. And then interestingly, I think most people would like think of shamans and be like, oh, shamans in FE7 are bulky and slow. And that's not true, but that is what we made them. Shamans were just slow. They basically like 1 extra point of HP previously to the other classes. So we've gone ahead, given them a bit more HP, a bit more defense, no additions to speed, a bit more damage. So now they're more of like the tank-based magic class, and that pairs well with Nosferatu. Clads were always one of the best classes in the game. Nothing major for them. Nomads also didn't see a lot of changes. They were always pretty fast. They're still chilling. Pegasus Knights got a big con buff, up to 7. You're gonna see a lot less Pegasus using steel lances as well. But even with those iron lances, they're now only getting weighed down 1. So you will find them to actually be pretty fast. When they then promote, they don't get weighed down by pretty much anything they'll ever use. And so they'll be some of the fastest units in the game. We really wanted to make sure that there were some fast enemies in the game because it makes your fast units like Lyn and Guy and Matthew and all them a lot more useful. Wyvern Riders, obviously, like, I mean, truly the greatest class in the game. They still kind of feel like wyverns. I don't find wyvern stats to be crazy. It's just the fact that they fly and have good damage. Soldiers got a massive improvement, but we kept it in line. Soldiers are supposed to be like the fodder enemy, so we didn't want them to be crazy, but like soldiers were a joke before. We raised their con to 10, so they're not getting slowed down by iron lances. We also kind of like gave them big HP, big power buffs, kind of decent everything. Your slower units, once they get going, will still double these guys. I don't really know how to explain it because, yeah, if you know this game, you know how awful these classes were, and they are now appropriately bad. How about that? Brigands and pirates, kind of similar vibes to fighters, but a little bit faster and a little bit less skill. And that is specifically it for classes. Now, I also want to note, we took big advantage of the female classes in this game as well. You'll see these sprinkled throughout the guidance chapters. Typically, the female versional classes will have higher speed and lower defense or lower damage. You might also find them to have a bit higher res, as they're often taking place on the chapters that have like weird magic going on. We felt like that was thematic. Really, these classes have been added to the game to just add some variety. FE7 doesn't have a lot of class variation, like especially compared to Sacred Stones. It gets boring. So we found that adding in the female variants like really kept the chapters just feeling like fresh and exciting. All right, guys, thank you for your patience. We have made it to the juicy stuff. We are now looking at unit changes. This is great. We needed that prior context for this now to all make sense. But man, it's gonna feel so good. These changes are sick. Reminder that the goal of this Romhack was to keep the game feeling like FE7. With that said, you sometimes just gotta do cool stuff. The first cool thing we did, I think, that will really stand out to you as soon as you drop into this game is we have given every single lord one of their promoted bonuses at base. So let's first jump into Eliwood. Previously on promotion, Eliwood got lances. He's now going to start with lances. We like this change because it keeps Eliwood feeling like a sword unit. He gets weighed down by lances, so he still feels primarily like a sword unit, but having access to lances makes him such a more versatile unit. And overall, as the main lord of the game, Eliwood has been buffed to be the true 0 to hero class. So Eliwood's gonna start out pretty rough like you remember. We've given him +1 HP, +1 strength, +1 defense, +3 res. The much bigger changes, of course, come with his growths. Eliwood's speed growth is going from 40 to 50. His defense growth is going from 30 to 35. And we've given him a fat plus 15 luck because he is kind of like the main character, and we thought like it made sense for the main character to sort of have plot armor, so he will get really lucky as the game goes on. For those that are like deeper in the know on sort of like the Fire Emblem 7 meta and like what makes characters good, I still don't think that Eliwood is like on paper seriously a good unit, and that's because he doesn't start good. But again, this ROM hack is made for the wide audience, and what I really like about Eliwood now is that he slowly and subtly grows into a monster. As he just chips away at levels, he just has the growth that kind of force him to eventually become good over time. The earliest Lord promotion is now Four-Fanged Offense instead of Unfulfilled Heart, and the other two have been pushed forward. So in Hector's mode, Eliwood can get an early promotion. And of course, becoming a knight is really good for him now because he's gonna have 8 moves. He's gonna get +2 strength, he's gonna get +1 speed, and he's gonna get a very nice +4 con as well. Eliwood is not the base best unit, but as the main lord, he has been given what he always needed: insane potential. I had a lot of fun building Lyn, and she is now, in return of that, my personal favorite unit in the game. This is a really good example to note the pitfalls, if I might say, of ROM hacking. A lot of people will look at a character like Lyn and say, what does she need? Oh, we'll give her a little bit of strength. Oh, she could be a little bit bulkier, then she'd be better. So more defense. You bounce the game like that, and you end up with an army that looks completely indistinguishable from each other. This is how you ruin character feel. A unit's weaknesses are almost as important as their strengths. And for a unit like Lyn, she needs to stay incredibly frail. But what we decided to give her from her promotion is actually +1 move. Giving her early bows would have helped her, but I felt like this would actually detract from the need to use the archers, whereas 6 move and then 7 on promotion paired with the Manikati gives her a very cool niche. Still a unit you need to use, but Lyn has the potential to become the best player phase unit. She has the move to break ahead and into most enemy ranks and one-shot them with 3 times effectiveness. Lyn is also a speedy character, and this is a game where speed matters. So not only have we given Lyn +5 speed growth, we've actually raised her base class cap from 20 speed up to 24. Same goes for skill. Eliwood was given a flat 2 across the board. You're not gonna run into that happening much unless you use stat boosters. It's very common to get a level 20 Lyn that has like 22 speed, and then into promotion that is monumental for her. The Wind Sword, she now has 1-2 range basically from the start of the game. And you guys remember how Lyn joined in like Eliwood and Hector's mode at level 3? We're gonna get more into how we've balanced Lyn mode, but Lyn now joins at level 8 with the appropriate growths. So she actually joins at a pretty usable level. You're not gonna have to grind her whatsoever. You're not punished for not playing Lyn mode. Lyn snowballs into such an absolute monster. She's a dodge tank, she's a crit machine. She's just so much fun to use. And what I love especially about her is she's a unit that rewards smart play. She's great with the rings, but I do also think that players who maybe don't have as much experience in Fire Emblem 7 will not find her to be that good because she's not someone you can just throw into an army and have her enemy phase from the start. She takes skill, but very rewarding. Could go on about Lyn forever. Let's move on. Hector is the best early game lord and the worst late game lord. We decided to give him 1 skill to start out because he just needs to be a little bit more consistent. And we've also given him +5 to his defense growth. Hector's main lord level caps will have 24 strength and 24 defense, which he will sometimes go over 20. And it's really fun when that happens. But of course, the big thing we gave Hector early from his promo are swords. Hector didn't need swords as much as Eliwood needed lances, but swords give Hector accuracy, which is something that there's a lot of cases he desperately wants. I really like this because it gives both of these main units a lot more versatility, which is what they should have considering they're like the main units of the game. As I said, Hector loves the blades. Hector uses the blades better than anyone else in the game. It actually gives them a purpose. And then on promotion, oh my God, he gets 6 move. So Eliwood will have 8, Lyn will have 7, Hector will have 6. Hector will never be a bad unit, but as the game goes on and higher defense is less necessary, he won't shine quite as much as the other lords do with investment. Ultimately, Hector feels pretty similar to how we always did, which is kind of exactly what you want for a good unit from the base game. We'll now go a little bit quicker through the rest of these units. Marcus is one of like 3 units that have not been touched. He's really good, and the only thing that's really changed with him is now that the enemies get stronger, he He will fall off a little bit faster, like you kind of would expect the traditional Jagan to. He still starts out amazing, but his speed will hinder him once you get to the mid game. Then we have everyone's favorite cav, Lowen. No, that's a joke. Lowen is like the most boring unit ever. I think a lot of you guys are still gonna find Lowen underwhelming because he doesn't have great strength and speed. Lowen is still an amazing early game character because he's able to enter a high traffic area from range and live multiple rounds of combat. The only other unit that can do that from +7 out is Marcus. So while Lowen isn't going to be run rounding anybody, he can take a lot of hits, and if you are a good player, you can definitely make use of that. The one noteworthy buff Lowen got is actually one more con than the other calves, and this is because he has lower speed, so should help him use things like the blades as well as steel weapons. Next up, we've got our fighting duo. Counting Lyn Mode, Dorcas actually has the best availability in the entire game. This is a constant challenge that ROM hackers face when trying to balance Dorcas because it's just so easy to make him crazy good. You really can't compare Dorcas without comparing him to Bartra. Because Dorcas is in Lyn Mode with great availability, we had to give him some levels, so we boosted him up to level 4, gave him some growth, and what we've done to define him is actually have him like the slower guy that has good bulk and good skill. As long as Dorcas's speed isn't crazy, it's relatively fine to keep him in check, and making him the more accurate axe user actually gives him a bit of a niche in the harder modes where early game hit rates are a little shaky. So medium damage, slow, bulky, and accurate, versus Bartra, who's now been turned into more of your typical growth fighter. Bartra was weird because like he had the higher speed growth, but he only had base 3 speed. It might have been 2. He was horrible. And so what we did is we've raised his speed to match Dorcas's. With his then better growth rate, he will slowly turn into a medium speed unit. A invested Bartra will feel very similar to Geets, which is an amazing unit, so he has a lot of potential. Then we have Rebecca, who we have kind of pushed towards being the speed archer. With 3x, she can one-shot Pegasus out the gates, no problem. We've given her +1 strength, +1 con, and the big one is +3 speed. 6 con from the gates as the one who's the fast one is crazy, like it was horrible. So now with her 65 speed growth, she should get doubling very quickly. Rebecca is best for early game peg kills as well as solid chip damage to help your other units. While her speed is nice into the end game, her biggest downside is that ballistas don't double, so she will struggle to kill wyverns from a ballista. Even though it's not in order, you can only really compare Rebecca to Will. Will is now the strong archer. He's gonna join the main story at level 6, where he will actually have +4 strength over his previous bases. Now that's with growth. At his level 1 bases, he's basically getting +2 strength, +1 speed, +2 con. The result is basically a player phase nuke. Will is actually just really solid, and he can one-shot wyverns, which is really nice. The other major thing we've done for these two in the sniper class is this class now gets +15 crit on promotion. If you think about it, the pure swordlock class Swordmaster gets +15 crit, the pure axe berserker gets +15 crit, so why wouldn't snipers that only focus on bows also get +15 crit? It's just one further thing to help this struggling class be a little bit better. As for the rest of the starting gang, we have Oswin, amazing starting units. The only issue we really had with Oswin is that he just kind of falls off being a knight. You give this class more move, you lose the feel. It's a very discussed topic. That's kind of where I land for the Legacy series anyway. So basically what we did is just take the initiative to make sure he doesn't fall off by giving him +15 strength growth. Being the resident thief in a game that has amazing loot, Matthew is one of the best units in the game. Didn't really need a lot, but we gave him a 1 level boost when joining in Hector / Eliwood mode. It's a little bit faster, he's got a little bit more strength. He actually becomes an incredible combat unit. Also can promote as early as Living Legend if you give him the Knave Seal or a bit later with the Earth Seal. Should also note here that assassins have been given 7 move. We've also made it so that they don't lose their ability to steal. Lastly, for those that follow GBA Fire Emblem community discussion, I am a believer in Rogue Kanto. Because the Rogue is not in this game, I just decided to give the Rogue to Assassin. It makes them a very good like late game utility unit, and they really just needed this much so that they could actually compete with Swordmasters. Lastly, we have Sarah, who has been given a spicy 4 magic. Sarah is also going to come at level 2 in the main story instead of level 1. And basically the issue with Sarah is that Priscilla exists. Horse healer is better than foot healer. You all know this. Priscilla just completely outclasses Sarah. So what we've done is try to make her the better combat unit on promotion. I actually love using Sarah. I think it's so fun to watch her grow with her like now quite good growths, better bases, and she becomes a really strong unit, especially with light magic boosts. Ranged staves also really help her compete with Priscilla. She's still not as good as Priscilla, who's one of the best units in the game, but it's closer and Sarah is more fun. Speaking of Priscilla, like how can you compete with this? Previously, she even had 2 levels on Sarah, so we've reduced Priscilla's level down to 2, so that by the time you get Priscilla, Sarah should be like at least level 4. Other than that, I mean, like, dude, it's Priscilla, like she's amazing. Now, as for Urk, probably the hardest unit to balance outside of Dorcas. Urk is competing with Priscilla, who is on a horse, and Pent, who is arguably the best unit in the entire game. In base Fire Emblem, Urk joined the main story at level 1. This was horrible. This was actually stupid. He had no chance whatsoever. We've given him 4 levels along with the appropriate stat boosts, but with stronger units, Urk is actually incredibly useful in the early game. He's one of the few units that can one-round knights and also just is always putting up solid damage against any enemy. He'll promote to D-staffs and if trained will be roughly on par with Pent's combat. Now, as for the rest of the Lindis League, Sane and Kent are Cavs, so we all know they're really good. But the one thing that they struggled with is they joined at level 4 with really bad stats and you needed to train them. And basically all of Fire Emblem 7 feels like all these units, if you don't play Lyn, are just horrible and you're punished for it. Because these guys now come at level 8, they actually start decent. And because they're Cavs, they then can get really, really good. Sane got +5 HP growth and Kent got +5 defense growth. And that was to further go into his balanced role. Sane is the strong Cav, Lowen's the defensive Cav, Isadora is the fast Cav, Kent is meant to be balanced. As for Florina, she got pretty good. Florina went from starting the main story at level 3 up to 6. She now comes with 13 speed. If you're playing Hector hard mode, you're gonna start using this unit and be like, wow, Florina still sucks. The thing is, you've probably also played Fire Emblem before and you know how good flyers are. Outside of abusing Lyn Mode grinding to make her good, Florina still doesn't take a ton of grinding to get there. She really likes the body ring, but like 2 levels are probably going to get her the speed she needs to start doubling everything. So her journey to becoming good is not as hard as it once was, and her great growths basically help her ascend to godhood. Every time I seriously use Florina, she becomes the best unit on my team. Conversely, jumping ahead here with Fiora, she is like character-wise an already sort of battle-seasoned flyer. So we gave her +1 level, basically +1 to her stats. We also gave her +2 con, so she actually has 7 con. And she is now the peg that comes fighting ready. So if you don't want to grind Florina, you get Fiora. But if you do choose to grind Florina, who's earlier, you will be rewarded with a better unit because Florina just has much better growths. I know I'm hopping around a little bit, so let's get back on track. I wanted to wait talking about Guy until we got to Raven. Raven got nothing. Raven was given absolutely not a single point of anything, and he is still one of the best units in the game. Also, just like funny to note, that is how good base FE7 Raven is. Raven notably gets hard mode bonuses, but he is basically unchanged. So if you know that Raven, there's nothing different here. Guy is the other early sword unit that also gets hard mode bonuses. And I think he has found a better place for himself. It's really hard to find a spot for Lyn and Guy since they're so similar. Where Lyn gets extra movement, Guy's big claim to fame is just that he's going to actually get the crit bonus. But in a game where speed is important, Guy's like, you know, starting 14 roughly speed is actually amazing out the gates. He also has better strength with +2 con. It's much better than Lyn's. He's also a little bit more durable. In a perfect world, we would have given Guy a specific +30 crit boost to his promotion, kind of like what FE6 did, but you could only do a global adjustment, which meant that like every other class would get that boost too, and we didn't want to do that. So while Guy doesn't really live up to like Rutger levels of fame, he's actually actually quite impressive and kind of feels like maybe almost a mini Rutger, in a game though where Rutger would be less important. The next unit that will be joining your party is Lucius. It was always crazy that Canas joined at level 8 and Lucius was joining like 2 turns before at level 3. We've boosted that up to 6 with the level gains. Lucius now benefits from getting C rank staves on promo. Shine also will no longer slow him down, which he's going to start with, and it's really good for killing the early shamans on the following pirate ship map. So this will be a really good training arc for him. He will be slightly slowed down by some of the heavier tomes, but he uses them very well, and this kind of allows him to find a niche outside of Sarah. And as for the man Canas himself, I gotta be honest, was always a pretty good unit. I don't think Canas is the best magic user, but as a whole, he's still a very good unit. I think the coolest thing about Canas is his +4 AS on promotion. Really wanted to keep that intact. We've also given him D rank staves on promotion. The other thing we've done is actually give him +4 HP, +1 magic, and +1 defense. This helps him kind of find that like tanky shaman role, makes Nosferatu tanking a little bit better. I find Canas to be a very niche unit where like Luna is amazing on him, Nosferatu can be really useful, but he isn't like purely the best combat unit for magic. So with Fiora's join on the Dread Isle, we also have Dart. So Dart had this weird thing where on the Gaiden Port of Badon, Dart would show enemy hard mode bonuses, but then when he joined your party, he wouldn't have those. And that just felt cruel because Dart was never an amazing unit, and especially in Hector hard mode, he just was kind of like behind. So basically we've given him hard mode bonuses that give him like +3 to 4 HP, +3 to 5 strength, +2 to 3 speed. This allows him to keep up to start in hard mode and then start snowballing into the awesome berserker that he always could become. So I say here, full bias, Dart is my personal favorite character from base FE7, but basically these changes keep him feeling like the all gas, no brakes character he's always been. For all axe users, Dart is just pure speed, strength, and HP, no defenses, damage sponge. It's beautiful. So Dart is kind of like one spectrum, then you have Bartra and Geats, then you have Dorcas, and then over on the other side is like Hector, maybe also Dorcas. Anyway, I love Dart and he's a lot of fun. Next up we have Legault. Lego for some people. Perfect just the way he is really does describe it. I mean, he's a thief. He gets all the beautiful assassin buffs. I know a lot of people say like he is a former Four Fang, so he should be stronger. It would make sense, and I wish we could do that, but it would just really kind of break the game if we made him like as strong as a Lloyd. And he's got hard mode bonuses, so again, great just the way he is. Following chapter, you get Ninian. She's a dancer. What more do you want from me? She's got slightly buffed stats. That was basically just to make it so that she wasn't always getting one shot at base. Also grows a little bit faster, and some of the bad rings have been buffed. From here, it is Isadora. Guys, say it with me. Isadora +2 con. I have always struggled with Isadora's 6 con because I do the math in my head and I'm like, oh, that means Isadora had 4 con when she was a little, junior cavalier. Sorry, what? We wanted Isadora's con to still feel low because that is her character feel, but 6 was absurd. She's getting slowed down by iron lances. 8 felt good. She is fast, and really these small tweaks that you're seeing for her are just to even her out so that she's still on par with the hard mode and improved growths of the enemy units. As I said in the notes for this, she now feels like the Isadora they meant to make but messed up on. Heath comes on the same chapter with hard mode bonuses. Always has had the potential to become one of the best units in the game as the early Wyvern, and I personally always found Heath a little bit disappointing just because he took so long to get rolling. Given him a level with some favorable level ups, this should help giving him a cleaner start. The other unit that joins in this chapter is Wrath. Wrath is awkward because in Lyn Mode he comes at level 7, but because hard mode Lyn Mode gives such little experience, it's actually really hard even getting him to level 11. Previously, when he joined on Kinship's Bond, he was coming at level 9, which was actually the only unit that was like accurate to what Lyn Mode did for them, but he just wasn't very good here. So we gave Wrath +4 levels with the appropriate growths, which means if you play in Lyn Mode, your Wrath is going to be really bad unless you power grind him. So if you're planning on using Wrath, you might just want to let him die because he'll then come back at level 13. There was no perfectly clean fix to this, but this is like the best situation for Wrath in the long term. He now feels like Sacred Stone's Garrick, where he just comes ready to promo, can turn into a pretty solid unit with 8 move. Also, I know in efficiency runs, Wrath's like big claim to fame was him being able to, I think, carry Hector. I know like mega diehard efficiency people are not gonna like this, but we've actually made it so that the aid for male and female units is now even 25. If you're not deep into Fire Emblem 7, I wouldn't worry about this. It was ultimately just one of those things that like having better rescue capability didn't add that much for the game, except for the 1% of people I'm talking to right now. And outside of that, it just made female units worse and was stupid. So it seemed like a change that was a net positive, even though 1%ers, I see you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we've made it into the era of insane pre-promotes. Starting with Hawkeye, we've given actually him +1 speed, and this is just so that he keeps up with enemy units. The buffs actually nerfed Hawkeye, right? So this was just to kind of bring him back up to par. Next up, we've got the boy Wallace. So Wallace is this famous retired knight, and he shows up in Lyn Mode at level 12. Honestly, kind of cringe. That was a joke. In Lyn Mode, we decided to give him 6+ levels with the growth to make him actually good when he joins in Four-Fanged offense. I will actually note here that the Lyn Mode Wallace is going to come with an Earth Seal, not a Knight's Crest. We will talk about the effects that has on the game once we get to map changes and we look at Lyn Mode. Anyway, Wallace is still a late joining general, not going to be amazing, but now he's actually a good general. And so if you like using knights, he is worth picking up on the Lloyd version of Four-Fanged offense. Oh, but my mans. It's so hard to be Wallace when Geats exists. Geats is so good. Even with enemy growth, we did nothing to Geats and he is a monster. Loves the improved longbow because he actually comes with B bows, unlike Dorcas and Bartra. And so now that this chapter is much easier to get to, you're gonna see a lot more of Geats, and if you didn't train Bartra, he is basically the pre-promoted version of him. Bartra actually will have slightly better growth at level 3 warrior, which is fair in the long term because you actually had to grind that character, but Geats is still amazing. Next is Farina, the 3rd Pegasus Knight. This unit is exclusive to Hector's path on the map Crazed Beast, where she would join, I think, at level 12 unpromoted for 20,000 gold, which was absolutely insane. We did big buffs for her. So Farina is now going to come as a promoted Falcon Knight, and what was previously an Elysian Whip will be a Earth Seal for anyone else. So big, massive gains in stats. But for 20 grand, even that was like, maybe not enough. So she's also gonna come with a Killer Lance and Killing Edge and an Elixir. I think that is still maybe not worth 20 grand, but if you don't have another flyer, then it is. Next up, we have Pent joining. Pent is technically a worse unit now that enemies have gotten stronger and he wasn't given anything. That's a great thing. We don't want to directly nerf units, but Pent was so much better than the rest of the field. This only feels good. Pent is still ridiculous. He comes with ace staves, for God's sakes. You're gonna have a fine time with him. I think Louise is actually a much more interesting change. Along with a few other characters, Light Affinity got a bit of a buff to suit the characters that have light affinities. Supports and affinities don't really have a major impact on the game for most players, but because Louise actually comes with one, this light affinity does help her a little bit. But I've actually found a pretty fair bit of use for her. Her high luck makes her great for dealing with Luna Druids, and with the buffs to both crit and damage on the silver bow, she kind of is a player face monster. Now, from here, we've got the duo that is Corel and Harkin. More information to come, but with the combining of the Pale Flower of Darkness maps into one big one, you can now get both Corel and Harkin. That's basically the big Corel buff, because before, no one ever used Corel, because Harkin's just better. We've updated Corel to also come with hard mode bonuses, and that gives him like roughly 25 speed, and getting a free fast unit in the harder modes is actually really useful. He also comes with the Woe Dao, so even if you're not using him, but you're using Lyn, you can give that to her, and it's a 1-2 range crit sword. It's really good. As for Harkin, huge Raven and Pent Marcus energy. This guy is just ridiculous. More details to come, but I'll note now, the way you unlock him is by killing Germ on Pale Flower of Darkness. Yeah, man, it's Harkin. He comes with a Brave Sword. Oh, Nino is a great one. Yes, Nino is an Est late game unit that likes to grow. With Fire Emblem, one of the most fun things is seeing your units starting and building and getting all those +1s on their stats. And This is kind of like, I think, what an Est serves. As you get to the later game, your units are going slower, especially in hard mode with reduced experience. And getting Nino is supposed to be this like, oh, fresh new unit that I can just grind and get all that like awesome dopamine. Myrrh does that really well in Sacred Stones, where she's just cooking on the levels and it feels so damn good. So that's basically what I tried to emulate for Nino. So she goes -2 levels, but doesn't actually lose any stats. This is to help her grow fast. We did not boost any of her bulk because she's meant to be this frail little kid with crazy magical potential. So we've given her 70 magic, 80 speed, 60 res, which are like the highest of those stats in the game. Faster than Guy, stronger than Dart, res on par or higher than everyone else. And when promoted, she gets B staves. Efficiency wise, still a horrible unit, but if you like seeing the number go burr, it's gonna go even more burr. Okay, so real quick fun story about Jafar. As we were working on the code, I think we learned why assassins lost the ability to steal. If assassins have the steal class, on Battle Before Dawn, Jafar just like stops engaging with enemies and just goes on a stealing rampage against the thieves. Not the purpose of his class. And so I think with the AI, they were just like, we don't know how to fix this. We're just gonna not let assassins steal because of Jafar. It just doesn't make sense that a unit would lose an ability like that. So what we actually did, the game has characters and there's a lot of like bandits, right? Like Bandit 92, Bandit 95, 78, and so on and so on. We took Bandit 9B and turned it into a secondary Jafar class. This Jafar cannot steal. This is the Jafar that you encounter on Battle Before Dawn. However, the Jafar that joins you, this guy right up here, he can steal. So actually, the assassin class doesn't have the ability to steal, but specifically Jafar, Legault, and Matthew have the ability to steal. Previously, it was just an ability on their class. Now it's actually integral to their character identity. Sorry, just some fun coding nerd gushing. Vida is a promoted Wyvern Lord. She didn't really get anything except slightly better growths because of better enemy growths and from hard mode bonuses. Carla is an oh boy. Why would you ever use Carla? You wouldn't. She's horrible. Basically, we have just raised her to be about on par with Corel because she is an Easter egg character. And story-wise, we wanted her to be useful. So she's now a usable Easter egg character, not meant to be good. Comes with another Wodah, which is nice for Lyn. She also has a brief appearance in Chapter 7 of Lyn Mode, where she explains how the Wind Edge works. Renault is a character commonly mischaracterized. People see his magic. They say, why the heck did this guy not have more magic? He should have more magic. And that's like his entire identity. Actually, a huge reason why he's like so popular in the fandom for only being part of like 2 to 3 maps. We just buffed everything outside of his magic so that he's a little more bulky. But ultimately, this man is a staff bot, so he didn't really need anything. And then you have Athos, who is just going to be slightly worse because enemy units have gotten a bit better. And so, ladies and gentlemen, those are your character changes to Fire Emblem 7 Legacy. As a whole, our goal was not to make every unit like A tier or even B tier. We simply wanted every unit to be usable. Now, with grinding, all units have always had the potential to become good. And basically how we define good is the level of investment needed to get there. Really good units like Raven don't need anything. They're amazing. Same goes for Marcus, Pent, etc. But the worst units like Dorcas are now usable, especially on the easier modes. You'll have a really fun time maybe running this like ragtag crew, and you know, it's a lot more doable now. And yeah, overall, we just wanted to make it so that units still feel like who they are, but you can always use your favorites. All right, so guys, we have finally made it to mode and map changes. We're going to first talk about the big broad sort of like guiding principles we use to change Lyn Mode. We'll then go through every Lyn Mode map, then going to talk about changes to Eliwood and Hector modes, and then we will go through every one of those maps. Lyn normal mode is basically unchanged. It's meant to be a tutorial, and we didn't want to remove that because we wanted to keep the game accessible for people who have never played Fire Emblem before. We have made some bigger tweaks to Lyn hard mode. We wanted to make Lyn hard mode feel not necessarily even challenging, but engaging to a broad range of players. And how we've done that is we've actually added in hard mode bonuses. For those that don't know, in the original Fire Emblem 7, there are hard mode bonuses in Hector hard mode exclusively. Basically what this means is if you have a level 1 brigand in Hector hard mode, he's going to have 5+ levels worth of stats over every other mode. Now, we did this to make things more engaging for, again, a broad range of players. This isn't going to be Hector hard mode level difficult, because then it would cut off all the other mode players from being able to play it. Right, so starting off with Lyn's prologue, the only major change is that this map has +3 for hard mode bonuses. Because Lyn has 6 moves, she has a little bit more range, but also vulneraries are now 5 instead of 3. So she has a lot more healing, which will kind of be helpful just because the boss is slightly harder. Chapter 1 actually does see a map change. We've made this little fort slightly bigger. The boss is now programmed to wait 1 turn and then move towards the player to, again, push the speed of Lyn Mode up. But if the player does get overwhelmed, they can actually go in here and just sort of like 1 space defend it. This map only has +2 on hard mode bonuses just because there's a few more enemies. And also in the story, Sane forgets to bring a sword. So you're basically just doing this map with Kent and Lyn. Chapter 2 actually sees a map palette change. We're also gonna have these 3 bandits moving towards the player, while this guy down in the far corner is actually gonna go move to break the wall. Lyn normal mode players will be asked to check out these 3 villages. And actually what we've done is we've made sure that all 3 of these villages give you legacy relevant information. And we wanted to make sure that the first map with villages did that, so that it would kind of click to the player of like, oh, maybe I should be checking out houses and villages. And that's pretty much it. Pretty straightforward map. Chapter 3 really didn't need any changes, so it just got +3. Chapter 4 is only going to have +1 hard mode bonuses, and that's because Dorcas is on this chapter. So this is the one map that we've raised the enemy levels to be more difficult rather than raising hard mode bonuses. If you gave it +3, Dorcas would be coming way stronger in this mode at a lower level. He just power scale way too much. The reason we generally have used hard mode bonuses is obviously that it gives the player less experience, which can be really overpowered in Lyn mode. This is the one case where we did levels over hard mode bonuses. Chapter 5, we've brought the spawns for like Dorcas and a few units up a little bit, and we've removed some of the forest to make trekking through this map a little less annoying. Once again, the villages have valuable information. There's one person that talks about magic, mentioning that base stave like heal now gives 15 experience instead of 11. And then they're also going to highlight the importance of magic. So this boss is going to have high defense and low res. And the purpose of this is to actually encourage the player to use Urk to fight the boss because he has the best damage on him. We've also added a droppable red gem on this map, and there is a sword, lance, and axe added to the armory. And then there's chapter 6, which goes down in Fire Emblem history for being a tutorial about switches to then never have switches in the game again. So we've actually added switches to the Hector and Eliwood specific like trial maps way at the end of the game, I should mention. Rather than completely revamping this map, we thought, well, if this introduces switches, we should probably put it somewhere. And that was the only map that really felt like it added anything to the map. This is actually the first map to have some hard mode reinforcements down at the very bottom. There's some mercenaries that spawn. The other thing we've changed, you'll notice, is that the bottom building, actually, once it opens up, there is a door to then go into the main rest of the area. Honestly, this is a pretty horrible map, and we really thought about completely revamping it, but in the spirit of Lyn Mode, we just tried to salvage it, and I think it is now fine. Chapter 7 actually sees a pretty big change where previously the northeast village was the pure water one, but this map kind of previously wanted you to like have Florina rescue drop Lucius over the mountains and then go and just fight the boss. So we've actually added in this bottom village, which gives you the pure water, and then you can go and stomp pints with Lucius. However, for those looking for a little bit of fun lore, we've added in a little dialogue with Carla, who is an Easter egg throughout the rest of the game. Carla is going to give the player the Wind Edge, which is the one weapon that's seen a very monumental change. Carla is basically filling the role of us as the dev team on why we implemented the Wind Edge. She explains how in the GBA Fire Emblem meta, lances and axes are better than swords because they have 1-2 range. She then explains that there are 1-2 range swords, they're magic. However, she has this one cool sword called the Wind Edge, which basically requires a very skilled user to use the sword to effectively manipulate the air to whip wind at the opponent. I know it's kind of loose, but that's how we sort of wanted to explain it not being a magic sword and actually relying on your physical capability. And I think it's kind of cool that Carla, as like the only other major like female locked sword user, can have an opportunity to talk to Lyn. One of these NPC villages will encourage you to beat the map fast, because if you beat it in under 15 turns, you're gonna go to 7x. Oh boy, this map was really bad previously. So check this out, okay? This is like all these tight corridors, horrible map design. We've actually done pretty big changes where you can see we've widened the hallway. We've made it just a lot more spacious, so you're not just in this awkward tight placement. And then we also made the boss a soldier. This was something we just really wanted to do because there's not a single GBA boss that is a soldier. So we thought he would fit well in Lyn Mode. He was previously a mercenary, wasn't really that unique. So yeah, kind of just a fun little change. Chapter 8 is the first map to see +5 hard mode bonuses, which is like the standard for Hector hard mode. There are some reinforcements that are going to come from these 2 little forts. We've also added a little passage on the eastern side for units going to the village. Rather than having to trek back, they can now go down and try to sort of like take on the enemy army from this other side. Previously, the ballista was situated beneath this sort of central archer, and it caused a weird flow of the map where basically like it covered this entire corridor, and so your whole army was just like bundled up here, unable to move, and it sucked. We've moved it back underneath this archer, which basically frees up this entire corridor, so you're still like at risk if you push too hard, but it doesn't make it so that you're just stuck at the very start of the map, unable to move at all. And chapter 9 Lyn Mode is going to have the biggest and most impactful change of the entire mode. So not only has Wallace seen a massive +6 to his levels, Wallace is going to come with an Earth Seal instead of a Knight's Crest. So for those of you that don't know, in hard mode, there was this fun little exploit you could do where you could get Kent or Sane up to level 10, and this hard mode, it wasn't a tutorial, so it didn't actually force you to promote Wallace into a general. So you didn't actually have to use the Knight Seal, you could just give it to Kent or Sane, and then when they joined in the main story, you'd actually be getting another Paladin. We looked at what promoting every other unit would do, so like Warrior Dorcas, Sage Urk, a Falco Knight Florina, Assassin Matthew. We realized that throughout the course of an entire game, there's actually like nothing more overpowered than getting a Paladin early. Like, yes, getting Warrior Dorcas on the very first chapter makes the following chapters really easy. Same for Urk and Sarah, but the early part of the game is, you know, not the hardest part of the game. And so we realized that like a Night Crest in Lyn Mode was already the most overpowered thing you could add and give to yourself for the main story. So basically, giving Wallace an Earth Seal simply allows for some really interesting and different forms of replayability. It's just fun. It's going to break the early game, absolutely. It's going to make your game easier, just like a Paladin Sane would make your game easier. But basically, if you were going to use this abuse anyway, it's no more overpowered than it already was, and it just makes the game more fun. So we're really happy to add this in, and we hope that, like, again, I know it's gonna be a little bit controversial, but we hope you can see that like it's really just done in the name of fun. Only thing that we thought might be more overpowered is like Angelic Robe +2 Strength Florina, and even that doesn't seem to be as strong as a Paladin. So yeah, it's just fun, and that's pretty much it. Oh, we also raised the placement of this castle up 1, because previously there was only one little spot to get in there and fight Eagler, and that felt weird. And finally, we have chapter 10, the far distant off shooting plains. The distant plains. Big change we're gonna note right now is, ladies and gentlemen, will say it with me, there is no rain. This little house up here, if you go visit, it's gonna say, wow, gee, you came at the right time. It just finished raining. And then she mentions that like when it's raining, your units will be slowed down, just to get that in for new players. There are maps that use weather well in Fire Emblem 7. This is not one of them. This is stupid. It just slows things down. We didn't like it, so we've just removed it. Actually, the second big change we've made, you'll see, is we have swapped the place of the vendor shop and village. Because there's no rain, it makes it even easier to get to this village if it's in the middle. So we brought it down. It's really the only thing that adds like a time incentive to this map. So we wanted to make it a little bit harder. Since it is a big goodie, you know, it's an energy ring. You do still also keep learning to break snags. It's just, it adds for a better flow on the map. This is also the last mode of Lyn Mode. And so for hard mode, we wanted to make it feel a little Hector hard mode inspired. So with this map previously, you've got a giant army basically just like choke pointing a bunch of stuff. I think also that bridge is new. On one of the very first few turns, you're actually going to have Pegasus Knights spawning from these forts. And what I really like about them, one, feels very Hector hard mode, but two, they have the ability to actually come up here and threaten all those squishy units that would otherwise be blocked by choke points. So yes, you know, you can just steamroll everything with Wallace, but you're gonna have to do some interesting placements with your other units because they are going to be a threat from these pegs. The other reinforcements we have are going to be a Hammer Brigand and an Armor Slayer Merc coming from here a little bit later. That is once again just to threaten Wallace. Actually, should mention chapter 9 has the same thing. You're gonna have like 2 Hammer Brigands spawn here, and then the fog comes in, and it's like, okay, yes, Wallace is an absolute monster. Yes, there is an Armor Slayer guy here, but there's also 2 hammers in the fog that I can't see, and that's gonna make me a little bit nervous. And the goal is just to make it so that Wallace doesn't feel like an absolute ridiculous monster. Lundgren, I should also mention, is a lot stronger now. He leads with a hand axe so that Lyn can canonically kill him if you want to like try to go for that. And so yeah, as a whole, Lyn Mode actually has like some pretty serious difficulty. It is certainly nowhere close to Hector hard, but in the last 3 chapters, you are actually going to be tested. And personally, as someone who was a original fan of Lyn Mode, it just feels a lot better now. Lyn Mode is fun for having short, snappy chapters with like really quick pacing, and with a little bit of difficulty added in there, I actually find it to be pretty satisfying. Okay, so moving on, we have Eliwood and Hector modes. Because I think it's the best example of the work we've done, we're gonna look at Hector hard mode maps. But firstly, I just wanna talk about Eliwood mode as a whole. So outside of enemies getting improved growths, Eliwood normal mode is basically unchanged. You will notice small buffs to maybe bosses and general enemies, but as a whole, we wanted this to stay like the first time Fire Emblem players mode. We've actually had multiple people who have never played Fire Emblem go in and test this, and we've balanced it kind of to their feedback. So that's the easiest mode of the main story. The next level up is Hector normal. Hector normal was always a slight step up from Eliwood normal, and we tried to push that a little bit further. One of the big things is that Hector's mode has more maps, so you get more experience. The big development challenge with this is that you can't just further push enemy levels. You actually need to find another way to make them stronger. Basically, the experience just keeps pushing your units higher, and then all of a sudden you're on like chapter 25 with a bunch of like level 20 promoted units. So we have tried to push it more difficult, make it more challenging, make it more interesting. The big defining specific thing about Hector normal is that although it doesn't have any bonuses, the units actually have much better weapon variety and weapon, they have better weapons. Basically, we realized if we can't make the units higher level, we can improve their weapons. So even from the start of Hector normal, you're going to see a divergence in weapon quality from Eliwood normal. You're gonna start seeing a lot more steel bows, slowly silver weapons, effective weapons are gonna start getting added in. And that's the way we've tried to basically make it like the medium level difficulty. Basically, you've got Lyn normal, which is like beginner level easy. Then you have Eliwood normal, which is like easy. As someone who's comfortable in Hector hard mode, I find Hector normal mode like extremely easy, but I would say then this is like a level up to maybe medium, where it's for someone who's never played Fire Emblem 7 but is familiar with the mechanics of Fire Emblem already. If you're watching this video, there's a good chance that neither of these modes are for you. And so the real question is determining whether you want to play Eliwood hard mode or Hector hard mode. Eliwood hard mode is the most unrecognizable from its previous version. Previously, Eliwood hard mode had no identity. It was basically on par with Hector normal mode, and it didn't really serve a purpose. So the big thing we've done is we've added hard mode bonuses to it. So for example, very first chapter for Eliwood, you know, you've got a few units getting added in, but then all these units get +3 to their levels to make them a little bit stronger. But the big thing is that hard mode bonuses per map are actually shared between Eliwood and Hector mode. So like this Birds of a Feather, it's +3. Basically, the development tool doesn't allow you to change it between Eliwood hard mode and Hector hard mode. What I'm getting at is the maps themselves all see the same +3, +4, +5. So the question is then, how do Eliwood hard mode and Hector hard mode differentiate? The first thing is that as a whole, Eliwood hard mode has lower enemy levels, and then weapon variety is also a little bit weaker. This basically makes it so that Eliwood hard mode can be fundamentally just a little bit easier than Hector hard mode. The second big thing that makes Eliwood hard mode easier than Hector hard mode is actually its starting chapter. Eliwood's first map is very easy, and we intentionally left it that way as sort of like a grinding simulator. In this mode, you get 10,000 gold and you're basically just fighting axes. So it's a really good situation for Eliwood to grind up. You can also like have Lyn and Rebecca get some levels, and it's a very controlled way to start. Plus you get a Draco shield and an energy ring, which Eliwood really likes. In Eliwood's hard mode, you start with this very controlled, almost sandbox mode where you can tailor your map to go exactly as you want. And the way that I always found Hector hard mode challenged you is you start mid-fall. This opening map is very chaotic, and in the story, you hardly make it out alive. The result is that the next map, you're going in with no gold, very little equipment, and you're basically like mid-fall. Sure, Hector definitely got some levels, but now you have this unit cast down here where like Eliwood's only level 1, Rebecca's only level 1, and so these units didn't get that like free training they got in the previous map. So Hector mode starts with this real pressure that Eliwood mode doesn't have, and I think that actually really defines the differences in the modes. The other thing is that Eliwood mode is much shorter and much snappier. Hector mode has a lot more maps, and that in and out of itself makes it difficult in its bulk. The additional experience has also been accounted for. So for most of you guys who are really into Fire Emblem, you probably want to be playing one of these two modes. Here's how I would explain the differences in a nutshell. Eliwood hard mode is the standard hard mode, and it's actually my preferred way to play. There is less chapter bloat, still getting a good challenge, but it's holding back. The way we tried to design Hector hard mode is like, you know how Birds of a Feather was one of the hardest maps in the game in Hector hard mode because it's just early plus hard mode bonuses? We've tried to make it so that that difficulty is a little bit less, but that vibe, it carries throughout the entire game. So Pirate Ship is an example where the difficulty really starts to come into its own, and it's like, wow, okay, this is serious. Previously, Hector hard mode started difficult and then would just fall off because of bad enemy growths. So this isn't trying to be a maddening. It's like the original vibe of early game Hector hard mode throughout the entire game. It's not maddening or lunatic. We didn't want to make a brand new mode, but Hector hard mode is a very iconic mode throughout Fire Emblem, and we just wanted to do itself justice in what it was trying to achieve, not make something new. The one other really major thing you'll see in Hector hard mode is an increase in unit deployment slots. Previously, Hector hard mode was like ridiculously cruel with it, and we've upped it so that rather than being like -3 or 4 units per map, it's usually just -1 from Hector normal mode. So a slight decrease, but still very fair. With that said, most people watching this will probably want to be playing one of the hard modes. So we're going to go through every map from the perspective of Hector hard, which is fairly representative of Eliwood hard, but just difficulty pulled back a little bit in Eliwood. First chapter, Another Journey. We've actually pulled back the hard mode bonuses from +5 to +3. Part of that has to do with improved enemy bases and growths. This map was always pretty chaotic, and it has been pulled back just a little bit so that you're not like RNG dependent on getting like low soldier rolls and stuff like that. We sacrificed a little bit of difficulty for consistency, and we also added a chest in this room, which was previously really just random and nothing. That's just an iron axe, and it's basically just because Hector kind of wants an iron axe to keep the durability of his wolf beal up. With 3 times effectiveness, Hector now actually one-shots the boss, which is actually in line with his dialogue where he's like, you've made me so mad, I could kill 10 of you, and he just one-taps him. Feels really good, and is like, again, appropriate with the story of this map. For Eliwood's version, this map is basically just a sandbox to train the units as you want to train them. Now, Birds of a Feather is an absolute banger. In my opinion, one of the best maps in Fire Emblem 7, so we didn't make a lot of changes. This one again has +3. With +5, pegs were actually doubling Hector unless he got a point of speed in the previous map. Didn't like that. So really all we did is we actually gave Zagan an iron axe and boosted his strength by like +2 or 3. He's really abusable if you just like have any sword units sit on a forest or a fort or a mountain. So we wanted to just bring his hit rates up a little bit. Hard mode bonuses go up to +5 on In Search of Truth because Guy wants that +5. This is the first map to see any sort of major map changes. And basically what you're gonna see is we've turned this sort of a western area into one big section. Previously, whatever side squad was going over here, it just always felt awkward and pointless. So we moved the vendor and shop up here so that it's all cohesive. We've also got 2 calves to deal with, at least 1 peg. This now feels like a true side objective to actually split the army. One of these guys are going to drop a slim sword, which you're probably going to want to give Guy. This map is pretty hard, actually. This is like the first map that I feel like is going to seriously push back against you. Moving on to 13X, one thing we wanted to do was make the guidance feel a bit snappier. So pacing wise, we actually pulled hard mode bonuses back on this to +4. The big change to this map is that the boss, Puzon, now carries an armor slayer. This makes a really interesting dynamic where previously, if you wanted to kill the boss, you could have Marcus go to the village and then Oswin go up to the boss to get the experience. Now there's a bit more of a trade-off where it's like, if Marcus is going to get the gold, which you probably want to do in Hector hard mode, you're going to have a few enemies tee off on Puzon, but he's going to actually drop an armor slayer because previously there wasn't an early armor slayer in the game. Moving on to false friends, one of my favorite changes in this whole series, guys. This map is now a defeat boss map. You previously had pegs that would come at you and then maybe have like 2 health left after getting hit by a hand axe, then they'd come down to heal, and the map was a defeat all enemy map. That doesn't even make sense based on the storyline. This map is all about Eric. I didn't understand why it was like that. So now, once you beat Eric, the map ends. Also, a lot of people are gonna expect us to remove the rain. The rain actually makes sense on this map. The purpose of rain is you've got 2 opposing armies where one has general range over you in their movement because it's all calves, right? So as you're about to hit each other, the rain starts and it saves you because it nerfs their movement. It's actually a very smart map, and I think people don't appreciate that. Eric won't move though, and the purpose of that is so that you can't have Marcus just like go and 2-turn the map. He's also got a horse slayer, so with the 3x damage, Hector is a much better candidate for taking out Eric. We've also put Urk a little bit closer to the player. The reason being is that when Sarah had to come up and go into this sort of like upper nook, she was then basically discounted for the rest of the map because the rain would come and then she couldn't get back to the main army. So we wanted her to just not get disconnected from anybody. Also, just a fun little fact because people don't know it, as long as you recruit Urk and this village isn't destroyed, if you defeat Eric, Priscilla will join you. So you don't actually have to get there if you're trying to like LTC or something crazy. Talons of Light was previously a weird map in Hector hard mode because the best strategy was just having Hector on the throne by himself. So what we've done is add a little pillar in the middle of the staircase so that it's easier to defend. We also removed the stupid door that was here. Another big change is that Lyn is not super slow now. So basically, for those in the know, if you want to do the old Marcus strategy of have him run a javelin here, Lyn can't longbow you because he can only attack you from this square, and then you take him out on the next turn. It's a little more tricky now. Basically, we've tried to make changes to this map to make it so that you're kind of incentivized to play it like an actual defense map. One thing that I always thought was cool is this map gives you a dragon shield, which makes up for the one that you didn't get on the first chapter of Eliwood mode. The other thing about Eliwood mode though is that there was an energy ring on this map that you basically just never got in Hector mode. We've made the really fun addition for Hector mode that there's going to be a thief with an energy ring that you have to steal from. So this guy right down here, he's actually going to move along and try to escape up into this northern path here. In Hector hard mode, it's actually kind of scary because you're putting Matthew, who is like pretty frail, in range of a lot of enemy units. You've got these calves coming. Personally, I've just always found this map to suck. It's just this giant blob, like ball of death suck fest. So adding in the energy ring adds a really fun objective. You've also got new stuff for the Lindis League. There is a path up here that Lyn and Will can take, which is kind of fun. It's a little bit dangerous. However, if you can get up there, Will can take the ballista and do some damage to some of these enemies spawning in. Lyn can also help clear a few of these people to just make it easier for your army coming in from the other side. Also, just pro tip, we wanted to give Will a big opportunity to shine right out the gates. If you put him on this vendor turn 1 and have no other units in range of these pegs, they will come down and both get destroyed by him, and it'll be like, whoa, Will's actually good, because arches are actually kind of good. Oh, and also from here on out, hard mode bonuses are going to be +5. Moving on to one of my favorite maps in this game, we have Whereabouts Unknown. I love this map because of the way it forces you to charge. Basically, you have a thief spawning in this little staircase on like turn 6 or 7, and he's going to get your Knight's Crest, which is like a really big deal, and you really need that, especially in Hector hard mode. My only complaint about this map is that it's always been very Marcus focused, where basically you just have to have Marcus do max amount of moves every single turn. But because one, bows are way stronger now and unit quality is just better, Marcus actually really struggles to just like 8-turn move every move and just like get there in time. So we've actually moved the thief back so that Marcus has like 1 extra turn of move, and then this allows it to be easier for your other calves to also push with him. There is a archer here that drops a chest key. So if you're really smart, what you can do is you can have the thief grab the silver sword, then kill the thief to drop the silver sword, then use the other chest key to hit the Knight's Crest, and then you don't have to have Matthew hit these 2 and then wait like 7 turns to go all the way up. Always hated that for flow. So if you're smart and cheeky with it, you can kind of save yourself some time. Raven is Raven. Lucius is joining at level 6. He's a little bit better now. We've also added in a breakable wall to allow Lucius and Raven to get to the rest of the action a little bit sooner. This kind of just helps ensure that they can get some fighting in, especially because I think there's some shamans here that spawn in Hector hard mode. Oh, and then the last thing is the Myrmidon down at the bottom of the map drops a wind edge. So that is your access to 1-2 range for either Lyn or Guy. Oh, and also if you save all 3 of the soldiers, you'll get all 3 rewards. If you save 2, you'll get the bottom 2 rewards. And if you get 1, you just get the bottom reward. But just saving 1 brings you to chapter 17X, which is relatively unchanged. One of these pirates have a droppable sword slayer because that previously wasn't really available. Other than that, it's basically exactly as you remember. You've got Canos joining. The middle section is arguably even harder just because the enemies have better growths, but you don't have to take it. You can just go around the side there and just talk to the man and end it there. Also, Damien has been given a bit more speed because he kind of sucked previously. Chapter 18, Pirate Ship, is where the game, in my opinion, says, hey, you're in Hector hard mode. Things are getting serious now. This is also the chapter that's like, you're probably gonna need to promote a unit or you're gonna struggle. Notably, we also have our first female unit appearing here, which is really fun. So I've found that Fire Emblem 7 is kind of boring because you're only ever fighting like the same 11, 12, 13 types of units. So we're slowly going to start rolling in female units. And on the Eastern ship, there's a female mini mercenary boss. She's going to have a silver sword. She's a little bit stronger level. Just something kind of fun to make this a little bit more interesting. We put the pure water on the shaman side because like that is where you want to be using the pure water. And then the last big change is that we gave Zoldum Nosferatu instead of Luna. Really sucked to push all the way to the boss to then just have to roll hoping he doesn't crit you. Nosferatu makes it a more consistent challenge. I should also note here that between every different mode, there's like weird little changes. Like for example, in Hector hard mode only, this map has a Pegasus with a Elysian whip, but then in Eliwood's mode, the Elysian whip is placed on the Ion like Gaiden map. All of those changes are so like annoying and little nuanced and detailed that we basically didn't change any of that. So if you're like, where's the first guiding ring in Hector hard mode? All that stuff is unchanged. You can always just go to like the main wiki for that kind of stuff. If anything ever, we usually just added it in, and you can find those ads if you go to this documentation, which is down in the link below. Chapter 19 is another very challenging banger. You've got improved enemy stats in Fog of War. Enemies actually haven't really been moved around that much. other than the obvious changes we've done to the sort of western side of this map. Sorry that this is blurry, but the point is, previously this map had this weird island that didn't really go anywhere, and there was just like these small little chunks. We found that this just was stupid, and the flow of this map was just horrible because of it. So we've changed it that there are just two now. We kind of connected this previous like island. So flow is a little bit better. You don't have to break a snag to get there, but you're incentivized to go this way now because we actually added a ruin, and this is going to drop a body ring. It's really nice to have it early to give it to some of the low con units, like maybe Florina, she'd love it. Eliwood would also really like it. So something just to kind of incentivize you to sort of push on this side, whereas previously you really just wanted to put a bulky unit here and block everything. Other big change is that this thief now carries a recover. So 17x is no longer dropping a short bow. It's now a torch, so that you then just have a torch to start this map with. And the short bow is actually dropped by one of these nomads. This guy's dropping recover, which is now a 1/3 healing staff. Uhai was also previously one of the hardest bosses in the game, and with the addition of 3x effectiveness, he actually got a lot easier. Basically, like Rapier Manikati just shredded him, so we made him quite a bit stronger, and we actually also put him on a thicket. In Hector hard mode, he's also going to carry a killing edge and a killer bow, and this has basically brought Uhai back up to his previous level of difficulty and even pushed him just a little bit. If you beat this chapter in 15 turns, you will go to chapter 19x, which is now unanimously Prisoner of Magic. This is another example of us wanting to speed up guidance. So we actually removed some enemies, but we improved the enemy quality. You're gonna notice that guidance specifically are going to have a lot more female units. That is to kind of make guidance feel unique and a little bit more spicy. So biggest thing here, very just starting off the bat, you've got female mage, female sage, and 2 female druids. The other thing though is the units that spawn around Kashuna are all female. So the female archers are a little bit faster, quite threatening, and they have short bows, which are now 1/2 range. And then the knights are actually female, which have been kind of tweaked to have higher res. So they're not just as easy as like totally nuking them with like whatever magic unit you have. Kashuna has also had a massive tweak. So Kashuna himself is very dodgy, but he's not this like absurdly stupid thing to kill where you're relying on like multiple crits to kill him in that single turn. Basically, the decision process was we would make these 4 units that spawn him around him much more difficult to kill, but then once you get them out of the way, killing him itself is actually not that crazy. And that's because there's no nils requirement to go to the following chapter now. So basically, you just have to kill Kashuna in Hector mode and you will go to chapter 19XX. This map has basically been left untouched because I actually think that the legacy change we made for this map is the fact that you can easily go to it. I would say 95% of players have never even seen this map, so I didn't want to change it because like you've never even experienced it in the first place. The big thing we did is that previously it had a bunch of thieves with capped speed, and they would just steal all your items. That didn't make it very fun, so we removed that. We did slightly alter enemy quality, but other than that, it's just like, hey, guess what? You now get to experience 19XX. And ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to chapter 20, the sort of early game climax that is Dragon's Gate. This map is perfect, like no notes, 10 out of 10. My favorite map in all of Fire Emblem. I love the way you're pushing against a boss and a ton of units to get up and block this spot to get to Legal. There's just so much good about this map. I know not everyone loves it, but I think it's a banger. Really, the biggest changes we've done is we've made this guy a general just to make getting by him a little bit harder now that you have 3x effectiveness. The boss Cameron has been slightly improved, mainly just has like higher con. Actually, Darren also has better weapons and better stats as well now. He's like serious, I guess. In most modes, you've also got a druid now up here. And I think the only other big change is actually that we've just made all of the secret shop up here. So you can't can't even actually get to down here now. We just totally blocked it off to say no to the player. Basically, this had a bunch of killer weapons. It was always really annoying that you had to go to both places. It just slowed the map down a lot. So we just put them all up here, and you're gonna see this going forward. We've tried to make it more obvious where the secret shops are. So like this one, for example, is just like a little ruined house. Other than that though, pretty much the rest of the map is playing the same. Yeah, I absolutely love Dragon's Gate. It is a banger. I feel like from this section, we haven't had massive changes. The goal with that is that we wanted to slowly introduce changes so that it didn't feel like, oh my God, I'm playing a Romhack, but rather, okay, slow changes. I'm getting used to the game having slow changes, slowly expanding. And kind of by the time you hit here, previously the game just fell off a cliff because there was no challenging units after here. And going into 21 New Resolve is where you're gonna start to see things, especially in Hector hard mode, getting a lot more spicy. The first example of this you have is previously this map just had a bunch of weak monks. Now there is a bishop with, I think, shine that has like a little bit of crit starting off on this map right in your face, and you gotta fight him. And there's another bishop back here, right? Bishops are pretty strong. Like they're gonna have like 16, 17 speed, probably won't even have a unit that can double them. Maybe Lyn, that's like the only one. You're also gonna have a Falco Knight. You're gonna have some more effective weapons. So again, this is probably not gonna be that hard of a chapter itself, but it's really gonna indicate changes picking up. The other big thing we did for this map is we've actually added 3 lanes. Previously, you basically just had your army going straight the whole way through. The northern section now is opened up, so you can kind of take a unit or two through there to get to the shops easier. The bottom section has also been opened up, and we've actually moved the Wormslayer from the far eastern bottom house to this close one right next to the first vendor. So a lot of people don't know this, should really note this. If the roof is red, it has an item. If it's this other sort of like light brown, it's just advice. So all of these now have items. They're just small things, but again, the Wormslayer is a little bit earlier because it's like this is the map where you want the Wormslayer, and previously you were getting it at the very end. And that's pretty much it. Chapter 22, Kinship Bond, kind of just fell into becoming a banger. I actually love this map so much more than it previously was. First thing you'll notice is that the green units are placed a little bit better. They're also quite a bit stronger now. These guys have better stats. They're also holding javelins, so they'll actually be able to help you. They might get in your way a little bit, but they do a really good job of sort of absorbing this first wave. You've also got 2 generals here. So again, another example, like bringing in harder enemies to make it more impactful. These guys are pretty threatening. Overall, in Hector hard mode, this map gets very chaotic quite quick, and I find it to be very fun. Actually, this is the one secret shop that had a little indication, and the big thing that we've added here are the ranged tomes and sleep. I will often pick up a few purges here and just have one of my bishops running it throughout the whole game if I ever just need like a little like safety kill or something like that. Really nice addition. Sleep is also really good too. I should note that Eliwood's mode is a little bit different because the boss actually comes at you, and we've moved him back a little bit just so that he isn't like coming at you on turn 1 necessarily. Moving on to Living Legend. The first big thing you'll notice is we've actually expanded this grass to come out pretty far into the desert. I'm a big fan of the Sacred Stones desert map. I don't think that this map does it very well. So we wanted to allow for a lot more maneuverability across at least half of the map. The other thing we've done is every single piece of treasure has a bone beside it. What used to be Ocean Seal, now Knave Seal, actually now has a little bone beside it. The Ocean Seal has also been reduced from selling for 25,000 down to 10,000. And so we actually added in a blue gem to just kind of make up for some of that. The other items through over here are unchanged. And then there is now some bones next to the body ring. We've kind of done the Sacred Stones Dozla thing where all the enemies around Pent in pretty much every mode have had their levels lowered to basically just reduce the possibility of Pent dying super early. This is a bad map too, just because Pent is gonna dominate no matter what, but also kind of pushing him down here in Hector hard mode makes him a little less crazy. In Hector hard mode specifically, we've added a sage that kind of comes down right on top of you. Kind of scary, kind of threatening, again, just to add a little bit of difficulty. There's also a Nomad Trooper up north there. Next up, we have Genesis, which is everyone's least favorite map in Fire Emblem 7. This map sucks because of all the long range staves. We've added in a bishop, I believe, that drops a restore. So if you go into this map with Odor Restore, you can get one. The other thing is it was weird that Pent is in the story of this map. He drops down with you and then he wasn't there. So we did did add Pent as a green NPC. He's holding Restore Staff, so his AI is not very good, but there is a chance for him to help to restore you as well. And other than that, we've toned back the levels to sort of balance out the improved growths. Unpromoted units in Hector Hard Mode now are pretty strong, but you'll notice that like promoted enemies are very good, and so we kind of needed to pull these guys back a bit. Still plays like Genesis, so I still hate it and never go here, but it is now fair. And also the requirement to get to this map is unchanged. I think it's like 700 XP across all your units. Moving on to Four-Fanged Offense, we have the Route Split map. You're gonna get Lloyd's version if the sum of your Lord's levels is 49 or less, and if they are 50 or above, you will actually get the option to go to the alternate path, which is Linus's version. Lloyd's map stays foggy. It is not a super hard map, but it has one of the hardest bosses in the game, who is Lloyd. In Eliwood's mode, he is a little bit further back, but in Hector, he is right up here. And so big strategy that a lot of people do is Pure Water unit onto the fort. Lloyd has to come down into this spot exactly, and then you have the rest of your team that can kind of team up on him on forts. Wallace is joining here. We've kind of cleared the area to make sure he doesn't go walking into Lloyd. The secret shop is super hard to get to because you basically need a flyer to get there, but basically it's a little more obvious now. North Village gives Silence. This village gives an Earth Seal. Also, Earth Seals can now level up Thieves and Pirates. There's a Myrmidon that also drops a Wind Edge, I think. And yeah, Lloyd is just like an absolute monster. Linus's map has always been the harder map, but with an easier boss. Linus was actually, in fact, so easy. Like, we needed to raise his speed. He's supposed to be bulky, but he had like 12 speed, I think. It was tragic. So he's up to 16 speed, just so that like it takes a fast unit to double him. The other thing I need to mention is that Four-Fanged Offense is the first map that now gives you a Heaven Seal to promote one of your lords. So previously it was Unfulfilled Heart that was the first Heaven Seal. That's getting pushed back to this chapter. We couldn't do it any earlier than that because it obviously screwed up the whole like level requirement thing. So in Hector mode, you can promote Lyn or Eliwood here. Linus's map was always bad, in my opinion. Actually, one of my least favorite maps in the game. Basically, it was just insane Wyvern spam the entire time. I found that really annoying because Lloyd's map is challenging, but like you can 2 or 3 turn it pretty easily if you know what you're doing. This map was just sit there and kill Wyverns for like 10 reinforcement turns in a row. We've backed off on the reinforcements, but the really exciting thing about this map, wanted to just make it fun, do something cool, is it has a changing tide now. So this is actually a dynamic map where on one of the very first few turns, there's a little Nino cutscene, and she's now gonna say, okay, yeah, the tide's going out now, so I must be here at the right time. That's your indicator to know the tide is gonna start going out. And there's actually 2 different versions of this map where the tide is like halfway out and then all the way out. And so basically, it's gonna allow you to, first of all, walk to the now obvious secret shop, which is right there in those ruins, and you can also walk down the middle of the map. Basically, this turns this map from a single lane grind fest up to Linus to a 3-lane map where you can actually have your units doing a whole bunch of stuff. We've also added in a lot more reinforcements coming in from the whole sort of like western north section. But yeah, this is one of my favorite changes we've done to the Legacy series. It was just a really fun opportunity to sort of like flex some more creativity in a way that I think really makes the map better. Moving on to chapter 25, Hector mode only. This is Crazed Beast. Big challenge with Crazed Beast. So with every other map, you've basically got like the Hector hard mode spawning units and then the Hector normal spawning units and the Eliwood and so on. This map, there's no difference between normal and hard mode for Hector. So Hector hard mode was really easy. And basically what we did is we just kind of tailored it around Hector hard mode, and because Hector normal mode doesn't have the level bonuses, it kind of works out. Big changes, you've got 2 Falcon Knights descending on you right from the start. There is a secondary warrior here that actually comes with a dragon axe, which was previously not available in the game. The overall quality of the Cavaliers has also been improved. Overall quality of the spawning pegs has been improved. Basically just better enemy quality overall. Farina is also going to spawn on turn 3, and she's going to be a little bit closer to this section. Like I think she used to spawn way down here. She's now coming a little bit closer. Purpose of that is so that she can then on the following turn reach Hector, because she actually has to move to him to recruit. As mentioned in the unit section, she's 20 grand. She now comes fully promoted with elixir, 2 killing weapons, and this is now, instead of an Elysian Whip, I think an Earth Seal. Actually, I really haven't been looking at the shops, but overall, they've kind of been improved in the logical way that you would expect, giving you what you want and need at the time in a fair, easy way. All that information can be found in the documentation though. Moving on to 26, Unfulfilled Heart. This chapter is going to be your second Heaven Seal, so you can get your second non-man lord promoted. Hector hard mode is actually really fun. What we've done is kind of like made the initial start of this map very hectic. So you've got a giant crew of horses coming from the bottom towards you with a sort of nomad trooper leading that charge. You've got a pretty scary sword master here from the start. You've got 2 berserkers coming over the mountains, and then you've got an Elfire, Divine, and Luna Druid coming down from the bottom, and that's coming towards the 3 main lords. So the opening of this map has been improved quite a bit. You've got some female units in there. With the other modes, you're gonna have a similar sort of like intro heat, and then it's gonna stay mild, I guess. In Hector hard mode though, we didn't want to let up the gas, so there are going to be a lot more wyverns spawning on you for the rest of the map. Moving on to chapter 27, Pale Flower of Darkness. Ladies and gentlemen, this is probably, I would say, the crowning achievement of the Legacy project. For those of you that don't know, these 2 maps actually just go together like you're seeing on screen right now. And we hated the stupid level requirement where it was like, I don't even know how you go to each one. So we just added them together. This basically makes it tied with being the largest map with Victory or Death. Just, I think, a little bit bigger than Cog of Destiny. How we designed this is we've got 2 sets of spawns for the player. We've got the Kenneth side spawn, which is the main section. This is where your main lord is going to spawn. They are responsible for seizing the throne. That is how you beat this map. You go, you kill Kenneth, you seize. And then you've now sort of got the B team, which is taking over like the previous spawn from the Germ version of the map. Why did we do this? One of the biggest issues with this map is just that the route split is not communicated at all. And it is very, like, it is just not friendly to the player. Another issue is that within those maps, there's different things. Like one of these versions of this map has the speed wing. Kenneth's version gives you speed wing, the other version doesn't. And like, that is stupid. Another thing is that there's the whole Corel Harken thing, which have different requirements on each map, and those requirements are stupid even to begin with. So we just found that the route split added a lot of confusion. It really forced you to go to Wikipedias, and we didn't like that. Adding these maps together, first of all, allows all the chests, all the loot to just kind of be generalized. There's no stupid, like, I don't know, magic unit requirement to get to the right one you want. And more importantly, is it really gave us a reason to make it so that both Corel and Harken can be recruited. Let's go. Sorry, I know. What you've got, okay, is you've got your A team. And if you don't really want to engage with this side of this map because you're like, what the dude, why did you make it so big? You can just take on this side with your A squad, put all the good units on this side, have them rush the boss, and just take the map out in a pretty quick manner. This left side is almost entirely optional. However, lots of good loot through here, lots of experience, also the ability to recruit Corel and Hark. Corel just spawns on turn 10 down here. He's going to spawn as a green unit, but before he loads in as a green unit, we have some background coding thing that makes him an enemy turn green, so he's gonna get hard mode bonuses. Rather than doors or promoted unit kills, the requirement for spawning Harken is killing Jerem. One of the other things we've done is have the fortune teller be much more helpful in like kind of offering up some things about like changes and stuff. So this is probably the most notable example. She's gonna do a little riddle about like 4 units, like the Saint, the Sadist, the Sinner, and I forget what Harken is. Basically, she's just gonna say that like Harken will not spawn unless the Sadist is defeated. That's Jerem. In hard mode, really fun little thing. On turn 5, there is going to be a fief spawn from the central fort who opens Jerem's door. Now in normal mode, if you come within the range of 2 turns of movement so that Jerem can attack you, he will go aggro and start attacking you. However, in hard mode, his AI is programmed to charge the player. This lines up from a storyline perspective because he is kind of crazy and aggressive and stuff. It also just makes the map way harder. And as an honest rule of thumb, this is one of the hardest maps in the game now. One thing we tried to do is make it so that wherever a unit spawns, the reinforcements of that type will be coming from the same area. For example, you've got a nomad trooper kind of in that like sort of central like long corridor, and nomad troopers spawn in this map up from the very north. Same thing goes for like central paladins. Used to be that paladins would spawn from like the bottom of the map. It was really chaotic. Instead now you have them spawning exactly where their predecessors kind of came from. The idea is that even if you're not going and looking at documentation, you'll say, oh, a nomad trooper, I'm gonna bring Lyn with effective damage against this thing so that I can easily take it out. And then when more come, you have the right unit that's ready there. Just because this is such a big map, we wanted to make it like challenging, but still friendly to the player. Last big thing is the snow is gonna remain. This helps control the pacing of the map, but one thing that really sucked about it previously is just how much it slowed your movement. What we've done is on the germ side of the map, all the buildings that you have to open up have back entrances now. So the big one is the bottom T building that previously only had an entrance from the far right side. You had to walk all the way around to go in and then clear it and then walk back out from the same exit. Now you can enter it from the spawn side, and there's also northern exits to just pop out. Basically, you're hindered by the snow, but these buildings allow for better movement and you're kind of incentivized to like move and flow through them. Biggest changes to any map we've done. It is one of my personal favorite maps now. We had so much fun making this. It's just awesome. I think it satisfies so much of what people wanted out of this map. And if you don't like really big maps, you actually don't have to play it, and you can just have your units charge through the main corridor and just go kill Kenneth right away. Anyway, moving on to chapter 28, Battle Before Dawn. Oh my God, the coolest idea for a map with the worst implementation. Honestly, didn't really need that many changes. Now, previously at the end of Battle Before Dawn, you got your second heaven seal. Now, this is actually the last one that promotes the final lord. So in Cog and Destiny, you're not gonna have that at all. The biggest issue is just that there was a lot of RNG dependence. I love this map in the way that it forces you to rush. It is like a masterclass in anti-ball of deathing or whatever. The big issue was just that there was a lot of things that could go wrong that was out of your control, obviously. We all know this. And that basically just comes down to the 3 green units. Jafar is in a really good spot simply because the killing edge has been boosted to 30 uses. You now very much easily have the ability to reach him before he runs out. We've also tinkered with things so that he typically will not go down into these bottom left corner areas. And yeah, overall, Jafar is like not the unit that should be at risk, and he's just really not at risk now until that is stronger unit starts spawning in, and then it's like, you've waited too long, you haven't done a good enough job, and that's on the player. Over on the Nino side, there was previously like a magic unit that has small crit chance. We've turned that into a fire mage so that these two are basically just 1v1ing. And basically now the way they're fighting, there is a small chance that Nino dies, but you would need to be moving slow enough that it's on you. There's no just like random RNG that she gets crit. And then we have Zephiel, who has had a slight buff to his stats, and he's actually been changed so that he will not move off of the pillar. So the first few units that come after Zephiel are pretty easy killings for him. He also has a fun little sprite animation now. But as you wait longer and longer, you're going to find like, oh my God, there's now a hero on him. If there's a hero on him, you waited too, you just haven't played the map well enough. And so now it's like, again, fair pressure, where the first few turns of combat that he's facing are no issue. There's just no world of RNG where he's gonna die from like 2 iron axes. But if you wait long enough, rightly so, he can die. Very small changes to this map, but I just feel like now it's much more in the player's control, which was what Battle Before Dawn was lacking. Enemy quality is quite good. I don't think though that the actual combat is the hardest part. It's about positioning units and charging to save these 3 as fast as possible. Also really important to note that in Eliwood mode, there is a lot of different enemy placements here. Ursula is over on this side, the boss is over on this side, but pretty much everything that we said still applies. Also gotta watch out for those thieves. They're pretty quick to get to these guys. So again, you gotta move in the hard modes. Moving on to one of the worst maps in the game, Night of Farewells. The simple, easy change to this map is that once a bridge spawns, it cannot despawn. We've made them also spawn a lot faster. This map is another one that has a lot of female units because it's a Gaiden. We wanted to make it feel special. The boss now drops the Emblem seal, which gives the unit plus 10 hit and plus 10 avoid when held. I don't like this map because I don't like these single lanes, but it certainly is a lot more friendly to the player now, at least. And if you always wanted to experience this map in a non-frustrating way, I think it is now that. Oh, you can also steal Sonya's Emblem seal and get her Fimbulveter, which is kind of nice, or Fimbulveter. I don't know how you say it. I always call it Fimbulveter, sorry. Moving on to Cog of Destiny, another absolute banger. Something I should also mention throughout Hector hard mode specifically, this was the one map that had like the whole enemy army being magic. We've tried to lean into that a little bit more for Hector hard mode specifically. So you'll notice that on Pale Flower of Darkness, the Hector hard mode version specifically has a lot of magic units. We kind of took inspiration from this Cog of Destiny thing and sort of kind of implemented it a bit more throughout the whole game. The issue with Cog of Destiny and Hector hard mode actually is that there weren't enough physical units. So you could just take a unit with high res like Florina, give her a Pure Water, and she could just solo the whole map. So we actually added in a few snipers, a few archers. Overall, unit quality is still pretty good. Valkyries are fast. Lloyd is really strong, probably the harder of the two bosses. He'll always be the harder of the two bosses. What does he have? 24 speed. So like Lyn, Matthew, Guy, like basically cap speed are the only people that will double him. Linus is not nearly as strong, but he does have a rune sword, which was from the Japanese version. Didn't really fit Lloyd's vibe, so he has the wind edge. Pretty unchanged map. I definitely recommend looking at the documentation to avoid some of these trigger points if you want for spawns. And yeah, overall, kind of a banger map, didn't need a lot of changes. Now, we have the two trial maps. So in Hector mode, this is pretty much unchanged. We just kind of raised unit quality, and very notably in Hector hard mode, you get 3 units like you did in Hector normal mode. Also, over by the boss, there is a switch. So this is the map for Hector's mode that you learned how to press switches. How it works basically is the unit that presses it is now going to get charged by 2 druids. So if Hector's doing it, like, you know, it's like, okay, this is Hector's worst nightmare. He has to then deal with 2 rounds of combat to like his worst enemy matchup. Yeah, but basically you step on that, the door opens up, and then they will charge down on the following turn. Now with Eliwood's mode, we actually were able to get a lot more creative with it just because of the way this map is formulated. So basically we've got 3 switches. There's one at the bottom on the very start, there's one on the left side, and then one up at the top. So the 2 side groups of allies need to push up to allow doors to open for Eliwood to progress. Obviously you can be lame and like warp rescue Eliwood out of here. It just is what it is. Now, because the main lord is promoted after Battle Before Dawn, Eliwood's gonna be a little bit stronger, same for Hector. So the enemy quality is again like a little bit better. But yeah, basically strong units. You have the archer side, you have the magic side, but both sides have a general, so that one unit type can't just like fly through. Like left side would love a Florina with a Pure Water, but like she's gonna struggle against that general, and sort of same vibe for the archer side. This is like the one map that switches really made sense on. At least now it's a part of the game outside the tutorial. Okay, moving on to Sands of Time. This is now a really hard map. You got a lot of enemies with staves. The Eliwood mode has a ton of archers, and overall it's just a defense map. Biggest things you'll notice is that the Ostian Knights are good. You've got a level 20 general with a spear fighting for you. They all have javelins. They're all decently leveled. They can actually fight back. They will get torn up by the magic units, but that's to be expected. We've also got 2 bishops with restore staffs because there is so much stave use from the enemy. Honestly, the AI of this is horrible. They will not use restore at range, and they will prioritize healing their own units over you, but they're there for the vibes, and they occasionally sometimes do something. The other big thing is the secret shop can now be accessed via door. You just got to loop all the way around to deal with a bolting mage, and then it's indicated by that staircase down there. Oh, and this secret shop now has brave weapons, which is really good. So you want to go there. Oh, and Denning now has a brave bow because it's better than what he had before. Oh, 31X, battle preparations. So this map, the shops now just basically have everything that's within the range of not OP, basically everything but like brave weapons. The only other thing about this map is just Carla in Hector's mode. We've reduced the level requirement for Bartra, Carla, Bartra, whatever, to be level 2 instead of level 5. The other thing is that Carla is searching For Karel, he can't talk to her. So now Karel can talk to Carla and recruit her. Carla comes with a Wo Dao, which is really nice because it's a great weapon for sword users. Carla also has stats that basically rival Karel's. So she's a good unit, not an amazing unit, but she's usable. That's pretty much it. And then you have Victory or Death. Honestly, it is one of my favorite maps in the game now. Throughout all of Hector hard mode, you're going to see an increase in unit weapon quality. As you go on, it's gonna be like, oh, this guy's a spear. Oh, this guy has like a reaver weapon. But as it goes on, you're gonna start to notice that units have 2 weapons. So like warriors have both of their weapons, or you're gonna run into some paladins that have full weapon triangle advantage. That culminates on this map, where basically every single promoted unit has everything that makes them good, and we've been as creative as possible. So with actually a lot of these later maps, we've reduced a lot of the like shitty reinforcements. There's still reinforcements, but it's less now. And instead, the initial wave of units are much better. So this map has crazy stuff like Brave Lance Falcon Knights, Rune Sword and Light Brand heroes, Silver Axe, Brave Bow Warriors, Killing Edge Sword Masters, Silver Bow, Silver Sword Nomads, Brave Lance Wyverns, full weapon triangle advantage, Cavaliers. And then the other thing we added in, just because it was never used in the previous game and I thought it was cool, are enemy assassins. Hector hard mode, very start of the game, you are coming to stop Nurgle's plans. He's like sending assassins to kill you. So from the gate, you've got 3 Killing Edge assassins sitting in forests. And what's really challenging is they're so hard to hit. They're so hard to range kill turn 1, but the pressure is there that if you don't kill them, they're gonna come and potentially Killing Edge crit you. So it's kind of just a fun dynamic. Overall, like I said, a lot less annoying recruitments, but just higher unit quality in general. And then the secret shop is a little bit more apparent once again up in that corner. A lot of you probably didn't even know about that secret shop because it sucks. That has Earthseal, Bolting, Purge, Eclipse, a Hammer, Rescue, and Warp. So if you want to get spicy for the last map, maybe you used your warp on this map, I'd recommend that. You can pick one up for the final chapter. 32X, The Value of Life, another map probably most of you haven't seen. Used to just be a map of berserkers, and we just added in sword masters and snipers, which are the other critting units. Not a lot to say about this map. It's only accessible if you've done the other 2 Kashuna maps. Most people that are good enough to make it here in Hector hard mode are just gonna warp skip, because you can just warp skip straight to Kashuna and just one-shot him one round the map. Personally, I would do that. This map does drop a rune sword though. I think there's only one other map. It might have been Genesis that dropped that. I can't quite remember, but anyway, pretty straightforward map. I never like this because it's like the end of the game. I don't really find it adds anything, but if you're storyline seeking, it is cool. All right, so next up we have the final map of the game, Light Part 1. I don't think I want to give away everything about this map, so I'm not going to show you the final chamber, but one thing I will tell you guys for the video is up in the top left corner, you used to have generic druid, generic sage. This is now Ion and Theodore. Just a nice touch. I know a lot of people like, so I just wanted to mention it in the video. Overall, this has never been the hardest map, especially if you know the little tricks and like, I won't say it just because I want it to be as hard as possible for people. But that said, dude, Light is such a banger. This might be my favorite map in the game, maybe my favorite map in any Fire Emblem game ever. Units are better here. You're still gonna have a challenge. Athos needs a little bit help on speed. I don't even want to get into it. The Nurgle boss room is also a lot more challenging now. It's going to be very reminiscent of the Lion fight. And actually, I think, guys, I will leave it there. I want to leave something up to you guys to explore, balance between wanting to like show off everything in the ROM, but also just like, I want to leave a little surprise for you. So I won't show you Nurgle, but that's pretty much it. I won't show you the dragon boss. Guys, I just want to thank you so much for being part of this. Unlike the Legacy project where like we were actually making a ton of videos and you know, we were able to at least monetize that. This was just like a pure vibes like hobby. Started this after Emerald Legacy finished and I just like was like wanting to try something new. This ended up being a lot more challenging than I expected because the big thing was just balancing multiple modes. If we had one mode to balance, it wouldn't have taken that long, but there was so much time put into balancing each and every mode and having blind playtesters and revisions and playing it anyway. Huge project. This took so much. I just wanted to take a moment to thank the playtesting team, the blind playtesting team, also specifically Sonic and Lord Nero for their development help. I'm not the best coder and Fire Emblem builder, so they helped me with a lot of the things that I didn't know about. Huge shout out to all all the creators of the patches, as well as all the animators. All that will be documented. I really don't know what the reaction on this ROM is going to be. I know the Fire Emblem community is like so deep into Fire Emblem that I'm worried, because this ROM is like more for the casual fan that like wants to go back and play Fire Emblem. But I do hope that maybe the more diehards like get a little bit of enjoyment out of their Hector hard mode. Certainly not expecting this to be like, you know, a sort of legacy, like main legacy series kind of thing. But yeah, I'm just like so happy to have had the opportunity to go through and change what is one of my favorite video games of all time in sort of my own vision. So yeah, that is it. Thank you guys so much for your time. I want to hear your feedback. I would love to see review videos. I'm going to watch them all. I freaking love GBA Fire Emblem. Never going to do an FE6, just so you know. But if this receives like a lot of support, I would consider doing a Sacred Stones Legacy. But that will be kind of down the road. So thank you so much. If you're not familiar with the Pokemon Legacy series, check out Smith Plays Pokemon, subscribe, but there's not gonna be a ton of videos on this channel. Anyway, thank you guys so much. You made it all the way through. Happy playing. Also, if you want a patch, there is a link down in the description to basically explain how to do that. It will be the exact same as Pokemon ROM hacks. That's it. That is my time. This has been a long video. Thank you. I'll see you later. Bye.